We're live.
Yeah,
We're live.
seems to be deadly. All right.
Let me double check if anybody's already. Let me see. I doubt anybody's on just yet. Here's the other thing. I don't see it on my actual.
I don't see anything either, actually.
It usually takes a little bit for it to come up. Anyway, we have one viewer. We've got one viewer. So let's start with the intro. Thanks for joining me and Ernest Snooks, who I met online via one of my videos. Let's solve the criminally overpriced U.S. healthcare system, part 1, which I have yet to make part 2. But that's part of what we're going to be talking about. I want to get a first.
Still waiting on that.
Let me see if I go through a tiny little script. So I want to get a first-hand account from an actual Canadian on his experience with a single-payer healthcare system. But just as importantly, I'd like to have an intellectual discussion amongst two political news junkies about the left and right political divides and parallels between Canada and the United States. So anyway, without further ado, I introduce to you Ernest Snooks. Thanks for being here.
How's it going, everyone? Yeah, no problem, man. It is a pleasure to be on, and I greet you from the lovely island of Newfoundland in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. It's almost 20 minutes to 11, so it's pretty good.
Cool, man. Cool. And so, yeah, what I wanted to really talk about were the similarities that I noticed, especially once I started listening to your podcasts and the things that you were talking about. I was like, wow, this guy sounds a lot like me and doesn't sound like what I expected a Canadian to sound like. Because the way we're sold about Canada, we're always told that Canada, it seems like everything's just fucking gumdrops and lollipops over there. It's just raining with fucking rivers of chocolate milk and stuff like that, and there's no squabbles. You would almost think you guys have one party system, but if I'm not mistaken, you have 3 parties, right? 3 major.
We have 3. We have 3, and one is slowly starting to inch its way up the chain, but it'll take a few more years. It's the Green Party, and well, they'll get somewhere eventually. I hope not, but
right.
All I can do.
And the one that I found interesting is the one that you told me that you're part of is the Progressive Conservatives, which I'm like, over here, that's just an oxymoron. I mean, you're either a progressive or you're a conservative. And as a matter of fact, now progressives, like, and then that's where it gets all muddled, because you think liberals and conservatives, and it's not that cut and dry, because nowadays, at least over here, I consider myself a liberal. At least socially speaking, I'm a liberal. I'm all for the legalization of marijuana, gay marriage, I'm pro-abortion, blah, 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 gay, and all that. But I am not a leftist. And I'm definitely not a progressive, because when I see progressives, I think of Bernie Sanders. I think, well, Hillary Clinton calling herself one. And when I hear progressive, I think socialist. But from listening to your podcast, you're clearly not a socialist. So want to explain a little bit what the Progressive Conservatives stand for over there? Or?
Well, it's really what it is, at least here in Newfoundland. I mean, I can't describe other provinces. Honestly, the system in each place, the way the ideologies are, they're somewhat similar, but there's still those finite differences. Right. For us, I guess, at least for me, what I feel progressive conservatism is, in my personal opinion, as someone who's evolved into it, who was formerly liberal, but not a regressive, as some people would call it. But right. For me, I'm what's called a red Tory, which is someone who is socially liberal, as you are, but fiscally conservative. I like the certain benefits that we have, but I also realize that we need to restrain the spending, because you can only spend so much.
Right.
And for me, that's what it is. For me, progressive conservatism is helping people, but responsibly, not, and also a free market, because by God, we can't have a government-run market. It just doesn't work. And capitalism is king. I know it'll hurt some of my friends to believe that, but it's king.
No, and I think from what looks, clearly I'm not an economist, okay? But But from what I understand, and especially, once I started informing myself as much as I could about politics and economics and seeing all that, there really aren't many choices for a society. And I think it boils down to just property rights. You either allow people to have property rights or you don't. And that's, I think, the real, I don't know if that's the razor's edge or whatever, clever little analogy you want to give it, but I think that's what it boils down to. And since my family's from Cuba, and I know I must sound like a broken record, that was one of the first things to go. That was one of the first things to go in Cuba when this piece of shit took over, Fidel Castro. Businesses no longer yours. Your own house no longer yours. And the few relatives of mine that stayed behind and they kept, they were living in their houses. When the older ones died, the younger ones, they didn't just inherit that house like, oh, okay, well, it's my house now. No, they had to repay that mortgage all over again to the government. That's and people don't seem to understand that property rights is critical for innovation.
It is.
You know,
And funny thing is, and actually, I think this applies almost to the U.S. is that we really don't own our own property, Nachi. We honestly don't. You might think you do. You might think, you know what, I bought this, I own the land, but you don't pay your municipality taxes, and you find out who owns the land. Next thing you know, the sheriff's at the door, and you've got to find you're living in your car.
no, for sure.
And a lot of government land, it's called crown land because here in Canada, it's technically constitutional monarchy. We're ruled by, well, technically the Queen of England, or the United Kingdom, I should say. And all this land is owned by technically the monarchy in trust with the governments. And if they tell me to get off my land, there's a few legal wranglings and that, but if they really want you off, they will get you off. And luckily, I don't live anywhere where there needs to be a lot of development, so I'm pretty comfortable.
No, yeah. By the way, for anybody watching, if I can't seem to access the chat online, I don't know why it's not coming up on my computer, and I don't want to mess with this shit right now. So, but let me see. I didn't even fuck with it. Right now, I'll just leave it as it is.
I think I might be able to pull it up on the old cellular, and let me see. And although I'll probably end up double watching myself. Yep, double watching myself.
If you could just mute yourself on what you're watching there.
Yeah, let me see. Somebody asked me if I said Labrador. Yes, I am from Newfoundland and Labrador. There's two parts of my province. Just gotta get that out there. How do I feel about Justin Trudeau? Somebody just asked.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that too. What do you think about that guy?
Honestly, I helped out on several campaigns for the Liberal Party a couple of years ago, and I regret it now. I'm not a huge fan of Justin Trudeau because he flip-flopped. He promised us that he was going to do electoral reform because we have a system here, first past the post. And, he was going to change things up and have a more representative system. And then he got into power because at the time he made these promises, he was a third-party leader. He was the third biggest seats in Parliament. And then when he won, he just said, well, I don't want to lose this nice little pie that I've got. So who can I blame in order not to have to change the electoral system that may actually impact my party's hold on power? Oh yeah, conservatives. Let's hunt down those dangerous right-wing bigots with scary opinions. And ironically, one of them was a woman named Kelly Leitch, and she came up with this thing called Canadian Values, which the media freaked out about. They panicked, and I looked over her site a while back because I was interested in seeing what all the fuss was about. Do you want to know one of the scary values, Nachi? Hard work. That was one of the scary right-wing values. It was on her website. It was hard work. Generosity was another scary one. And Canadians are supposed to be friendly and generous, but in Trudeau's opinion, that's a scary right-wing opinion. And being generous to Canadians is a bad thing. But
Well,
I don't like Trudeau very much anymore. Like I said, I find him disingenuous. He doesn't really do any work. All I see is he's on TV or he's flying somewhere or he's got his phone up, you know. And I've had my picture with him. I know I had to do it. It's a Canadian law that you pretty much have to get a selfie with Trudeau. Just kidding. But you know, he doesn't do any work. I don't see the man in the House of Parliament. He's occasionally there, but then he's hanging out with Emma Watson. He's having a sandwich with Obama. He's smiling and looking nice and fixing the hair. But he's all selfie and no substance. And he's still going to win the next election if when it comes up, because he's going to legalize marijuana, and that's going to give him a lot of votes.
no, sure.
And yeah, sorry.
No. How do you call it? But in my book, you can't go wrong with legalizing marijuana. You know,
Definitely not. Now, it depends on how you sell the marijuana, though, Nachi. This is the biggest question. How will this marijuana be distributed? I think we touched on it a bit in a previous stream that I did. And thank you again for letting me on that one.
thanks for
Anytime. But the biggest worry I have as someone who believes in free enterprise is selling me marijuana. Now, personally, I don't use it. I have no problem with people who do, but just my personal choice. But it bothers me when the government says this should be sold through official government stores, and there are those here. We have plenty of stores owned by the government. In Newfoundland, they sell all the liquor through government stores. Hard liquor is sold through the Newfoundland Labrador Liquor Corporation. Anyone else cannot sell alcohol, cannot sell hard liquor. You can sell beer.
Oh, that's interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah, and these liquor store jobs, I want one because they pay, I think, $15 to $20 an hour and full benefits just to sell booze. And so it's a dream job. I know people who work for it. They tasting trips. It's fun.
No, no, go ahead. Keep on.
Yeah, sorry. They're talking about now is selling the marijuana through these stores. And that bugs me because there's so much profit in marijuana. And of course, if it is used responsibly, don't want to have 8-year-olds getting high. But no. I mean, I'd like to see stores, people selling marijuana like you'd sell liquor or cigarettes. But I want to see them done in a private business because that creates the jobs, that generates income for the community. If it's sold by the government, the profit is going to the government. It's not going in your community as much as it should. I mean, that's a lot less profit going in. And, the employees who live there get paid, but that's where it ends. There's no further investment back into the community. A business owner, he's going to want to expand, if he does good. And that means construction jobs. That means, more employees and all that. So that's my biggest concern about the legalization is not the effects, because I've done security in some pretty rough places. I have never a pothead. I've never. They're the best guys to have to deal with if you're.
Oh, for sure. Sorry, you were breaking up a little bit there. I'm assuming what you were saying was having worked security, you never had any problems with potheads.
Yeah, or I should say the partakers of marijuana.
I'm a pothead. I'll call myself a pothead. Not stoned now, but for sure. So then, essentially, is it safe to say that alcohol in Canada is socialized? It's like socialized alcohol?
Not every place. Now, like I said, every province is like the states, really. I mean, we're not as
okay, but just in Newfoundland, Labrador, it is quote unquote socialized or owned by the government, I guess. And
it is maintained. Now, buy beer at the convenience store. In Alberta, which is in the central part of Canada,
right.
I've never seen it sold at convenience stores. but they have liquor stores. They have private liquor stores, which there was in the city I lived in. There was probably 10 liquor stores,
Right.
and in New.
Wait, sorry,
Uh,
you were breaking up there. I couldn't hear you.
yeah, stupid. Fi.
No, that's cool.
But in Newfoundland, it's all liquor. I got to keep stressing it. Don't take.
Huh. Hey, hold on one second. I finally found it.
Newfoundland, Labrador.
Wait, one second. Just want to make sure this is muted. And here we go. All right, cool. Now I'm seeing everyone that's in on the chat. Oh, cool, man. I got the old Frighter Watcher, obvious internet troll. Cool, man. I got the regulars in there. Nice. Thanks all for joining. And what was going to say when you were talking about basically, as if alcohol was socialized over there. No, I know that as far as marijuana, I don't understand why they wouldn't go by the way it is already here. Like, for example, in Denver, in Colorado, I'm sorry, the state of Colorado. And I was there in 2012 when they were still playing the whole game that it had to be medicinal and you had to have your little card and stuff like that. And it was a little confusing to see myself over here delayed. Anyway, the point is that I remember, it was legal but not legal, and yet now it's pretty much legal. Like now, if I'm not mistaken, recreational use in the state of Colorado as well as California, and even over here in Florida, it's starting. So I don't think it's all that difficult, and I wouldn't. Yeah, but it would suck if the government took over, because once the government takes over, there's just not that much more innovation.
No, there's not, and also restrictions on it here are going to be pretty intense. Everyone is allowed to grow marijuana plants, I believe, is the new legislation, but you can only, I think, grow 2 plants. And carrying in your possession, you are only allowed to have, I think it is 30 grams. I think that's the smallest. Measurement for it. Or ounces. I think you can have your 30 ounces or 30 grams of marijuana. That is the limit. If you are caught with anything more than 30, you're getting arrested. That's the proposed legislation. So weed is legal, but quantities of weed are not legal. And
that's go ahead.
No. Sorry, I was just.
No, when you were talking about the amounts, it's funny because now they've definitely changed that over here as well in Miami, Florida. And it's funny because I guess I can admit it now. I got arrested when I was younger for a roach. I mean, it was actually a tiny little roach. I actually let the guy come up and like search me because I was like, "There's no way he's going to arrest me for this shit." And I got arrested. And but fortunately, it was a promise to appear in court. But nowadays, I think you could. Forgot the amount, but it's a pretty large amount that you could be caught with. I mean, in comparison to years ago, and that's that is the interesting thing about how societies shift, and the laws, and within like a single generation, and I'm not going to say I was a victim of that, but interesting, and especially the way my parents flipped out when they fucked. I was really young when that happened. Was like 19, but I was already an adult, so I had to get the records expunged and stuff like that. And here I am fucking talking about it on a live broadcast. Well, whatever, dude. Here, let me go back to some of the other questions that I had for you. Okay, so we already kind of went over what liberal and conservative means. Like the terms here, and I think that seems to be almost pretty much the same, overall. But it's funny because you were telling me that I forgot which party you were saying that they're almost like considered right wing. Oh, that the Democrats over in Canada are considered right wing, huh?
They are, because I mean they still want to have the socialized medicine, but they're still kind of hawkish on a few things. They're still somewhat supportive of war. I mean, as you see with the way the Democrats are posturing themselves against the Russians. some strange reason. I thought the wall was over and we were all supposed to be friends, but the history of, as Andrew Wilkow calls it.
Right.
And for us, we're very centrist, but I mean, the Liberals are here in Canada are going slowly to the left. The NDP, which are the New Democratic Party, have always been, this left-wing grassroots movement. But they had a really good chance of winning last election and literally ruined it. It was hilarious. They came in with they were the second largest party in the House and threw it all away because their leader, who was nicknamed Angry Tom, was in charge, and he just ran roughshod over everything and ruined it. But the Conservative Party, when Stephen Harper was Prime Minister, it was conservative. It was, we were keeping an eye on the money. We were involved heavily in Afghanistan. We were interested in making money and doing commerce. Right. And then Harper did a few things that we really didn't like. I personally didn't like. There was a surveillance bill that came out, and when I questioned it, I remember we were going to meet with the member of parliament in the city I lived in, and in order to meet with him about this bill, it had to be a first session. No one was allowed in besides us. We had to give our names, our addresses, and our phone numbers. And if we came in a vehicle, we had to give the license plate number. They wanted all this information in order just to tell us about this security bill. And we were just like, okay, nope. I've read 1984. I am not I'm not getting re-educated. That's not going to happen. So we pulled out. And so now it kind of drifted into the middle. We had a possibility with a fellow named Maxime Bernier from Quebec. And that's something, now this, you were talking to me offline about, everyone thought that Canadians, were towing the line if there was no conflicts. There's actually a huge sectarian split in Canada in terms of in terms of ethnic lines. There's actually a French-English divide. And it's not as bad as it used to be. But I mean, it's still, it's raised its ugly poutine-loving head again, I should say. And but like I was trying to say there, I'm sorry, I got a bit off topic. The Conservative Party now, under Andrew Scheer, who was just elected the leader, is going to be, he's a social conservative, which I'm a little bit uneasy about, because he's pretty religious, I've heard. But if he's fiscal and he brings us to a surplus, as long as he doesn't damage anyone's rights, I really don't mind if he's a bit difficult to deal with in terms of some social issues.
Right.
Because I mean, it's fine and dandy to have all the rights, but we also need money. Money is life. And so yeah.
And by the way, what did you think about the whole thing of the C-16 bill? And I see somebody in the chat, Malcolm from the North, said how he loved how Trudeau said he'd repeal the surveillance bill and then backed off.
He did.
I'm going to display my complete ignorance here. Is that the same as the C-16 bill with the whole thing of the transgender pronouns and all that shit? Is that what that is, or?
No. I'm trying to remember because the bill names, there's so many bills that go through that parliament on a basis. I think Bill C-16 is that motion that I was talking about on the previous stream about the discrimination laws.
Right.
That one's different. There was also a surveillance bill. I think it was C-69.
He's saying that it's C-51, at least the surveillance.
Yeah, 51. That was the bill that I had to write down I had to give all my information. And so he did backpedal on that. And actually, one of the local cabinet ministers in Newfoundland is a former member of parliament. And he was one of the people who voted for the surveillance bill as part of the Liberal Party. And I remember I was at a campaign event in 2015, and I said, I have to go up to this guy, because he was a junior cabinet minister in the federal government under a fellow named Jean Chrétien. And Chrétien he was okay for a Liberal. But when I went up to him, and I was just like, as soon as I said, talked about the bill, he got angry, man. Like, he was just like, listen, we thought it was the right thing. It was all good. He's like, it's to protect Canadians. And I said, well, what have you protected us from? Because just recently, a couple of years ago, there was a terrorist attack on Parliament Hill. And he was just like, well, listen, it's way above you. Let us handle it. And at the time we thought it was the right thing. And then he blocked me on Twitter. And now I'm unblocked, but I'm still not a fan. I'm still not a friend of theirs anymore now.
Well, so you're pretty in the thick of that. You're pretty, like, you're actually getting in touch, because I just talk shit about politics. I have yet to really start kind of getting in there. I've only gone to like one local meeting, and it was only because it was really affecting my neighborhood. And I want to spare people the details of it. But it was interesting to go to an actual live, like, I guess what you could call a municipality hearing, for local zoning districts and stuff. Extremely just local stuff. And then that's where you see the sausage getting made. And you're like, oh, shit. And then you see the wheel back and forth. And that was the one time where I almost took a socialist stance, because basically it was this one, well, I might as well get into a little bit. Basically, it was this one developer that's trying to develop here in our neighborhood. And I'm always all for, like, genuine progress, capitalist progress and all that stuff. I've never been against that. But of course, it was going to really affect our neighborhood. I mean, they wanted to put an entrance, and we already have enough new construction around here, and it does affect. I mean, that's, my family being immigrants, now we're like taking on the local stance, like, oh, well, fuck, we've been here for many years, because you get all these new people, like people here at fucking 2 and 3 in the morning, fucking drinking outside my house and shit. So I was like, fucking a new building, forget that. And so I felt like a little bit of a hypocrite going over there to try to, like, halt what this guy was doing, and I'll never forget when the actual owner, like the guy who was this, I don't want to give away too much information, but let's just old, and yeah, I guess he fits the stereotype, the old rich white guy, except he was a white Hispanic guy, and I'm white Hispanic as well. And I remember when I took the stand, the guy looked at me, he was like trying to stare me down. I'm like, dude, fuck you, man. All right, this is my neighbor. You got more than enough money to wipe your ass with. And those are the people, I think, that give capitalism a bad name, and they give the rise to those quote unquote liberals, to the fucking Justin Trudeau's and shit, who then want to come in as if they're the hero to the little guy, when they themselves, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not going to say I'm an expert on Justin Trudeau, but I did a little bit of research before today's podcast with you, and wow, that guy fits the stereotype of just the classic trust fund kid, if I'm not mistaken. He grew up wealthy, even though his father was a supposed socialist or some shit. I was just hearing it from the guy from Rebel Media, which was another question I was going to ask you, what you thought about Rebel Media. But is that true that Justin Trudeau grew up very wealthy, just traveling the world and fucking?
He did.
Never held down like a real job, like never had to worry about what it's like to fucking pay rent and shit.
He didn't, man. Like, he's got like he's got a teaching degree. He was a drama teacher, and he's never really had to do anything incredibly difficult. One thing I was fascinated with a lot of the liberal politicians is that, they tend to grow up relatively privileged. I mean, especially the young guard, they're coming in, and they never really had to do a hard day's work. I mean, look at the UK. Jeremy Corbyn, the leader of the Labour Party, he literally started off as a labour organizer.
Right.
Then he got elected to Parliament in the 80s, and he's plodded around there ever since. And now he's come in, and that's a whole nother thing. And as someone of British descent, I keep an eye on the UK elections, and I'm terrified that he might even have a chance of winning. But we can talk about that another time. Um, and what were you going to say about Rebel Media? Because I know a little bit about them. I'm not a huge fan of the Rebel because
Okay.
they're.
Oh, serious. Yeah, yeah. I'm a little on the fence about them as well. Like I definitely like Gavin McGinnis. I think he's a real ball buster and shit. Don't agree with a lot of the shit because he's well. I forgot if you're religious or not, so I won't go there. But I don't mind when people are religious, but when they're so secure,
I,
people
Nachi, I
go
come from a relatively religious family. I mean, several of them are evangelicals. I'm what you would consider an Episcopalian. Uh, I'm not hardcore about it. I can joke about it. I can laugh about it. And I mean, I definitely understand that some people take it way too seriously, and I mean, it gets annoying to say the least. So some of these people, I can understand why they're atheists, because if you hear someone waving around the book and thumping you upside the head, you're not going to enjoy this very much.
no, for sure, and then that's the thing. That'll be a whole other podcast if we were to get into that. The reason why I'm atheist is because, dude, I go by evidence, bro. That's the thing. And there's just no evidence for God. And I grew up Catholic. And even as a kid, I was like, dude, there's something obviously wrong with what I'm being told. Everything contradicts itself. Jesus is God's one and only son, but we're all God's children at the same time. Yet Jesus is God himself.
Yeah,
And so then to hear someone like Gavin McGinnis talking, it's funny. I like him because he talks about like his old, the old days of like setting up Vice and the partying and the coke and the hookers and blah blah. I'm like, oh yeah. And then all of a sudden he'll start talking about going to church and shit. And I used to change it. Like, it's like each his own.
Yeah, I mean, he completely changed. I mean, you go from like punk and hardcore hipster kind of a way, and then you're just like, it's like you take off the skinny jeans and you put on the pants of Christian responsibility, and you go on. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me the way he acts, because I mean he shifts between these multiple roles almost, and that's why I'm not. I mean, I find him funny to hear him speak, but
Right.
I'm not going to think this man is the voice of my generation. I just find him somewhat amusing.
Right. And I'm seeing somebody here saying rebel media entertainment, but not informative. And
No, it's some of it is
more than anything. They're the Canadian version of Infowars. That's it's true.
They're not turning the frog gay though, so I mean.
I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry.
I said they're not turning the frog gay. That's the only difference between them and Infowars. And plus, Gavin McGinnis isn't ripping his shirt off and running around. Not yet.
I thought I'd seen him. Well, him now with the whole thing of the Proud Boys. Because I think that I definitely don't want to say that they're adding fuel. Well, I guess maybe a little bit. They're adding a little bit of fuel to the fire. Not to the degree that Antifa and fucking Black Lives Matter and all those groups are.
No, definitely not.
But don't seek it out either. You know what I mean? It's just let them make an ass of themselves. They're already doing a pretty good job. They're discrediting themselves with every fucking protest that they do. Slowly but surely. And it's so easy to debunk any of their how do you call it, their arguments for the most part. But when you start adding this in, and like the battle at Berkeley, fucking the third one, and this guy, what is his name, Kyle Chapman or
the base stick man, yeah.
I mean, kudos to him. I'll agree with that guy. I'll side with him any day over that other fucking little. I'm trying to watch my language. Wow, who cares? That fucking little cunt. And I don't want to refer to him that way, but I've been called a cunt too. Anyway, Yvette Falarka. Oh, ugh, that woman's poison.
Don't get me started on Falarka, man. Like, I just.
And then that's the other thing. I like to be careful with the information that I get. I saw really good.
She's teaching kids this stuff. She's encouraging them, man. Like I've seen these articles that she's encouraging kids to go to the rallies and that, and I'm just like, you're a teacher. Your beliefs aren't on the agenda. You're there to teach what you're trained to teach, not how to how to throw bricks at cops. I mean,
No, but the worst thing that I've heard, because it was through a video through Sargon with Hodden, I'm pretty sure that guy tries to get it. He goes through great pains to get his information correct and all that. The group that she quote unquote runs, by all means, by any means necessary, it's pretty much a cult, which is what I figured. And I mean, literally a cult where they've actually held their members, kept them from family and friends. At least in this one, I think the video is just called "Bam is a Cult" or "Bam and."
I think it is. I'm a big watcher of Sargon and his little side show there, side channel there, the Thinkery. I'm huge fans of him.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I find he's one of the more informative YouTubers I listen to.
Right.
And then if I need my laughs, I'll listen to Bearing, because Bearing is just awesome.
Bearing, you mean the little bear guy, right? Because I to tune into that guy.
And the Britisher. I'm a huge Britisher and Sargon are my two favorite YouTubers. And by the way, I just want to say, great job doing the image for him. It is top notch, man.
Thanks, bro. Thanks. I appreciate it.
But yeah, like, we don't have this kind of thing here in Canada, thank God. Well, at least in the school setting,
right.
We don't generally have the teachers do this. The university maybe is a bit different, but this whole socialism implosion nonsense, all this socialism that they get into in the American schools, it hasn't completely flooded here yet. We're kind of cut off from the mainstream, but it's starting to come in. Recently, they had protests because the university wanted to raise the fees for foreign students and students who are from outside the province. Because here, if you want to go to university, it's subsidized to a certain extent by the provincial government. So the government chips in so much, so your tuition is significantly less than what it would be if you went to other universities. And the foreign students, well, I shouldn't say all of them. There's plenty I know who are, they're fine paying this money. But there's a few of them who said, hey, I want my education cheap or free. And so they went out and they protested. And one of the girls lives in a city near me. I'm not going to say where it's to, but she's from Ecuador.
Right.
And she was out screaming that, university education should be, if it can't be free, it should be cheap. And that foreign students, they're not here for to live here. They're not here because they enjoy it. They're here because they want a quality education, but they don't want to pay for it. And it's the government's job to help subsidize it. And I look on her Twitter, there's a black anarchist flag. And I'm just thinking, you have an anarchy flag on your Twitter, and you're saying that the government, who you are supposedly against as an anarchist, should be paying for your education. And I met her actually a while back when I was doing my trying to get her for an interview for my radio show. And I said to her, I said, why should we have cheaper education? She said, well, because we deserve an education, we have a right to it. And I said, okay, does Ecuador pay to subsidize you?
Right.
No. I said, well, what is wrong? I said, do you want a cheaper education? Yes, of course. I said, well, I have several friends in Ecuador. I said, I can recommend you schools in Quito. I can recommend you some great schools in Guayaquil. I can even send you some great schools in Peru. I said, and guess what? They're significantly cheaper than what you would pay for here. And I mean, here, it's cheap compared to a university in America would get if I had to pay for it. But here, it's maybe $15,000-$20,000 a year if you're doing a higher end degree. So I mean, it's reasonable. And she was just kind of looking at me. She said, well, it's maybe she kind of panicked. She's like, maybe it's a bit of a racial thing. And I said, well, no. I said, it's just, I said, you're cheap. I said, you're just cheap. I said, listen, I said, you can go have your champagne with your little socialist buddies, I said, and preach about solidarity and unity. I'm not paying for your education. And then an article comes out on this left-wing newspaper in the province, and it says that not inside the province is nativism. It's this pseudo nationalism that's emerging, and it's apparently it's pretty much going to lead into all the fun racism that we get into. Bollocks, as the British would say.
No, and those are some of the other questions that I had, because I was wondering to what extent is the whole Black Lives Matter movement ethos bleeding on over into Canada, because I know that they have their chapter over there. And what's the name of this girl? Yusra Kogali, the one that said, "Oh Allah, please give me the strength not to kill these white people." And you're like, how the fuck is this acceptable? You know what I mean?
If I were to say that, Nachi, I'd be arrested. I would be they would have the RCMP
for sure
at my door, and they would be asking me some very, very interesting questions. And the thing is that Canada has an official policy of multiculturalism. It doesn't really work, and I hate to say that as someone who, as I told you in offline there, I've been involved in multi-ethnic relationships, things like that, and I'm not a fellow who's against immigration. But if you come to Canada, you need to adapt. You need to blend in, and you need to accept what it is to be a Canadian, which is, beer, hockey, and maple syrup, and the occasional beaver fight. Those I got to take. The beaver fighting. It's a blood sport, man. But
no, I definitely want to talk to you about that. Would you mind would you mind if I invited a couple of people in?
Sure.
First of all, that's cool. Because I always feel guilty. Like, I really wanted to keep it down to just you and I, so it didn't become. Not that I thought that the last one was bad, because everyone that was on, I loved having people on and stuff. That's great. But then I get very like, oh my God, you're playing host essentially. But anyway, let me send out this one link, so somebody might just be jumping in pretty soon.
Definitely not a problem, man.
But tell me more about these beaver fights. What is that, like cockfighting for Cubans and shit like that, or like a fucking dog fighting over here in the United States?
Pretty much, you get a beaver, you fill him up full of maple syrup, and you just send him out. And man, it's
wait.
It's I'm joking with you, dude. We do not have beaver fights.
Wait, you do not?
We don't. I was just pulling your
let me tell you something. I would not have been surprised. I was like, really? Well, I guess we have cockfighting. Over here we got dog fighting in the United States.
Hey, man. Hey, but listen, for any entrepreneurs out there, give me 5% of the revenue and you can beaver fight all you want. I don't endorse cruelty animals, by the way.
Nothing surprises me nowadays. That's the thing, It's funny because I was right about to go and check on YouTube for beaver fights. I was like, dude,
well, Nachi, you got people calling priests to get rid of ravens. Like I sent you there. Remember that I showed you that?
Oh, that's right. Let me read out the. Hold on a second.
It's great. I couldn't believe that one happened.
Harbor Breton man calls in priest to deal with persistent ravens pecking at his house. Yeah, I guess he thinks he's being possessed by demons or some shit if he's calling the fucking priest.
His grandmother told him that it wouldn't hurt to have a priest come and bless it.
Failure.
Hey guys. I'm not going to be here for long. I'm going to just invite Stephen Blackman. Gonna send him the link in the DMs, and he wanted to talk to you about economics and stuff.
Oh, cool, man.
Yeah, he's a cool guy. He's a regular on my chats, and yeah. By the way, congrats on almost getting to 1,000. It's almost there, man. Almost there.
Thanks for helping me out. I was listening to your stream last night, and here I'll plug your shirts on john.com. Dude, that looked really cool, man. The face taking up the whole shirt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just trying different things, Just
really good, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna wear it to VidCon if it gets here on time.
Oh wait, this is Ernest Snooks.
Going.
Accomplished. Great YouTuber who's helped me out. I mean, the whole reason why I'm doing the live streams is because of him. Like he's the one that kind of like broke me into the idea because I never really wanted to do these. But
Mhm.
once I started doing it, I was like, man, I like the energy you get, you know. And then the whole thing with talking to people at the same time and shit.
Like,
And
everybody gets their own style and everything. Like, it's hard right now because everybody's live streaming since the apocalypse happened on YouTube. Everybody's streaming, but I feel like it's like a good outlet just to talk about things, because sometimes in videos you kind of feel like you got to cut down things, and no, here you just ramble on.
no,
and,
yeah,
and you can tell when it's not working when you see people dropping off or like.
You see, we're at 19. We've got 19 now.
19's still good. Hey, Steven.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
What's up, David?
Hey, thanks for inviting me on. So let me briefly for 10 seconds. Let me just say that Nachi, I asked our mutual friend Failure here to try to contact you because at first when I joined your stream, you said you couldn't see chat. So I was typing in chat, say, hey, can I, I would love to try to join and say a few moments and say a few words. And you said you couldn't see chat. So like, well, dang, I don't know how to follow them. I looked at your Twitter. We didn't follow each other. So I thought, well, hey, well, maybe our mutual friend can contact you and get us to connect. So I wasn't trying to strong arm anything. I just wanted to just maybe say a few points and that's all. I wasn't trying to force anything. So
In
Failure,
reality,
thank you very much.
In reality, this is how it happened. Hey, Nachi motherfucker, you better get Steven on it. You like that bicycle over there? You wouldn't want a flat tire, would you?
That's right. I know people. I know almost as many people as Failure, minus 1,000 or more.
By the way, I'm being told that right now I'm just presenting myself. Amanda Wolfchild said you're presenting yourself. What the fuck did I do wrong? Did I hit a button or some shit?
Here, just do this right here.
Yeah, and also that was why I joined when there was like 5 people. So I thought you were just kind of like taking one person at a time kind of in. And so that's why I was, kind of typing in, hey, mind if I join? So I didn't see like a lineup of people or anything like that. So anyway, my point was I wasn't trying to be an asshole to strong arm my way in here. I was just
no, not at all. No, it's just
I'm a big fan of economics and U.S. economics, and I'm studied a little bit of Canadian economics and their laws. And in fact, the worsties are jokingly considering moving out of it to Canada because of their last 3 laws that they are possibly able to pass. So anyway, anyway, I'll shut up. Go ahead.
No, that's cool. The thing is, this is the 3rd live stream I do. The first one, I didn't even know how to get the fucking full screen on. It was just like the corner. The second one, I was supposed to have Billy Bong on, and then I wasn't sure if he was going to be able to make it. Then I thought I was just going to do myself on. And the next thing I know, I'm just inviting everybody on. It just became,
it gets like chaos. Yeah, I understand.
I'm trying to get away from that, and it's hard because I'm a nice guy. So when people ask me, "Hey, can I come on?" I'm like, "Yeah, you can come on." And before I know it, full stream, nobody can really talk because everybody wants to talk.
I think that's why Marty. Can I have a link? Flavius says I have a hard 5 rule. I have a hard 5 rule. That's it. Unless a special occasion. In fact, he did that today. I have a special occasion. Otherwise, it's a hard 5 rule. So I understand. Go ahead. Again, Failure, thank you very much. I interrupted your night. I was actually hoping you'd have a stream, but I saw that you had your thing is now normally Tuesdays, which I'm glad you have a scheduled scenario. So I look forward to that.
I'm planning to go 5 days a week, but for now it's going to be Tuesdays and Thursdays. Tomorrow I have Magog on, and we're going to be talking to a military gentleman.
Good
about his service. Yeah,
that's great. I sincerely now that I'm on with you just for even just a few seconds, Failure. I absolutely love your streams. Not just the people you get to connect with that they're popular, but just the wide range of people that you connect with. And I watch more streams now in the last 2 months than I've watched YouTube videos in the last 1.5 years or 2 years in general. I just really enjoyed the stream. So please keep it up. And I'm not kissing your ass. I'm just letting you know positive feedback. It's great. Go ahead.
I like talking to different people. Like one person you need to have on is Ian Miles Chong Nachi.
Yeah,
He's a
definitely.
good
Yeah.
talker. Yeah, but he came on one time, and now anytime like I'm streaming, he's like, "Can I get on?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." Aren't you bigger than coming on a channel of like what 20 people watching? But no, he like if I send him the link right now, he'll probably come on.
And then that's the thing. Like when I find myself those few streams that I've done with you, failure on, and there's like a lot of people, then I go quiet because I don't want to, step on anyone's toes, and but they are fun, man. I got to admit, and a lot of times it's true. You get to get a lot more information, obviously, in a more conversational manner and stuff, and everybody's relaxed.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm in my head. I'm like, this is like the McLaughlin hour, and I'm trying to fucking do this. The liberal and conservative parallels of Canadian and U.S. politics, and I love to talk the economics. I definitely want to,
Yeah, definitely.
talk about that.
I'm gonna bow down. I'm gonna just go into the chat and let you gentlemen talk. So have fun, and so yeah, I'll just plug my show tomorrow, Magog. It's gonna
Kick
be
'em. Kick them.
What time are you gonna do?
But thanks again, Failure. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Later, guys.
Failure. What time are you gonna do the stream?
8 p.m. Eastern.
8 p.m. Cool. Well,
Yep.
definitely tune in tomorrow, man.
All right. Later, guys.
Take it easy.
8 p.m., bro. Wait, so now that we got an economist,
Whoa, no,
was curious.
no, sorry. I don't want to, please don't oversell me. I'm not an economist.
oh,
Please, I don't want to oversell myself. I'm just saying that I have studied economist concepts and the differences between Europe, America, and Canada in some ways, but I am not an official or university economist. I just want to make sure that's out there. I'm not trying to lie or anything like that. Trey, go ahead. Sorry.
No, cool, man. And I saw because when I was scrolling up to the original comments, and then I saw your little icon, and I see Nachi the economist. Oh, you're calling me the economist. Hardly.
Yeah, that was more. I like to joke. Okay, so most of what I say and most of the streams that I watch, we shit post, we laugh at each other, we're witty, we say jokes and things like that. But in this conversation, it's a little bit more serious than just shit posting. So anyway. If I could I get the name of the gentleman that's I guess is still on stream and that you were talking to for the most of it? I didn't catch his name because I just saw your picture.
Ernest Nooks.
Nice to meet you.
Ernest. Can I call you just Ernest?
Ernest, yeah. How's it going?
Great, and you? So you're from Canada, and Nachi, as I understand your channel, you're in America, correct? Probably the Florida area?
Yep, Miami, Florida.
Great. Okay, there's a lot of, this is a wide, it's almost like talking about religion. It's a wide berth, right? The economics of not just America economics, but American, but also Canadian. In my opinion, and because I'm not an economist, but I'm very interested in it, a lot, it seems to me, seems to boil down to what can be afforded and what do people want. So, and it almost goes down to a fiscal versus emotional argument.
Oh, for sure.
And I attribute that to things like Black Lives Matter and abortion. It ends up being, very emotional and fiscal and logical and things like that, opposite extremes. So, what I think of, I'm trying to just get my thoughts. There's like 6 topics here that I wrote down while y'all were talking. What I'm trying to narrow things down is to what can be afforded. Well, on one side, if you say the conservative side, at least on American, I know that UK versus America, conservative means different things. So I don't want to confuse America versus Canada. but I'm going to speak mostly from the American version because that's who I am. Is that from the conservative side? There's always got to be a balanced. We got to think about financials. How is this going to get paid for? How is this going to be afforded? Are we going to continue to borrow from the Fed, which is a quasi, not quite national and somewhat private entity, which we're now up to almost $21 trillion? Or are we going to try to eventually pay off that debt, that we have the largest debt in the world, and try to bring things back to a parity? Unfortunately, even though so for myself, I'm more of a conservative liberal, and by that I mean classic liberal. So, very quickly, gays, do what you want, get married, just don't screw in the streets. Same with straights. Don't screw in the streets, okay? It's just basic, basic stuff, okay? Marijuana, yeah, totally legal, and that's actually a point I'll get to later. I have a very, very personal situation that I was involved with legally. I'm still not done with legally. Less than a year ago. What other very topics? Abortion. Overall, hey, it's not just about what a woman's right is. It's about overall a person's right is. That gets into some very difficult waters of what if the father wanted the kid and the mother said, no, I'm going to have an abortion, and he's screwed because he has no rights. That gets very difficult, but I don't try to get very sticky on that. What's another common topic? Taxes.
Yeah.
So the rich. Here's a common, I would say, leftist or in my words, not my words. Rubin report. Dave Rubin. Regressive of, hey, you rich people, you deserve to pay more because I deserve to get more. Yeah, that doesn't seem to work out. That doesn't seem to work out well in a realistic scenario. That lends itself, in my opinion, to a socialist scenario. And I know lots of people say, well, look at Sweden. Well, actually, Sweden's, if you look at their financials, they're borrowing lots of money to pay for lots of things than they were 15 years ago. So their model really isn't viable as it was that we used to think of historically. Excuse me. And I would say let's jump forward to look at Venezuela. Do we want to be Venezuela?
Good God,
where the government says we're going to take over oil, we're going to take over manufacturing, we're going to take over farming, we're going to nationalize pretty much everything. If you go to the nearest gas station you go to, I think it's is it PIMCO? I forgot the name of the company that's nationalized. Anyway, the very next station you go to fill up your gas is owned by the country, and they don't have gas. They're rioting the gas stations, taking them over, stealing their stuff, etc. It's crazy. I think they're a perfect example of why socialism, in its classic example, doesn't work. Yeah, but I won't stick on that very long. So, I think it comes down to, if you introduce free stuff to the people,
By the way,
to gain a popular support. Sorry, go ahead. I don't see chat, so I don't know what's being typed.
This one's worth mentioning. Somebody, Holy Man, 1970. Sweden's model worked when they left in longboats, pillaged, and came home with riches.
that was like 900 years ago. Yeah, or 1,000 years ago.
That was venture capitalism.
Yeah. The sad thing is that's nature. What they were doing is fucking nature. And yet, when it comes to economics now, and that's what I really wanted to kind of talk with Ernest about, especially with the healthcare system, because I go by evidence. I like to go by what works. And for the longest time, especially since my family's from Cuba, don't worry, I'm not going to go into that, but for me, socialism, the word, I'm allergic to it. Of single payer, I thought of socialism, like everything's going to be socialized when it comes to healthcare and stuff. But no, apparently, single payer, you can have, from what I'm understanding and from what I'm coming to appreciate, is you can still have the private doctors, the private practices, the private services and all that, which is critical. Like what we were saying, that's critical. People, I wish more people understood that about property rights and private property. But it would all be paid through the single payer being the government. And I'm starting to notice, like now that I'm between jobs, yeah, it would be really helpful. And it's not because I even believe I'm entitled to this shit. For me, it's not even a matter of morality. I'm just thinking, like, yeah, I'm thinking in terms of logistics. And I think if we did away with as much as we could on the waste, the fraud, and the abuse, man, I think we really probably could have single payer, which we have single payer for basic education here to a large degree.
And how is that going?
You know,
how's that turning out?
No, it's not so good because there's so many other little factors at play. But I think when it comes to economics, I think it's almost like a science. I know a lot of people don't like to think of economics as a science, as a hard science. It's not like chemistry.
Oh, sure. Definitely it is, yeah.
I think it is. The reason why they say it is because you can't make predictions on economics. But I think there's a lot of basic laws, like the law of supply and demand, the fact that we have scarcity. You could bet your ass on those fucking observations and laws. But of course, it's not like chemistry where H2O will always be water.
Well, that's because government's not saying you can only use so much H2O to perform this experiment. But government is saying you can only do X, Y, and Z in this education or financial or FDIC or the Fed. Government is inputting forces into this equation that isn't happening in regular science, right? Would you agree to that?
No, for sure. They bring in that variable, but then that's the other weird thing that I also have discovered. You have to have some regulations because not everybody's going to be a rational, honest player. That's the problem.
Okay, sure. Okay, so let me. This is my, and I'll try to keep this to less than 1 minute. My biggest criticism of the U.S. University system. Okay, so the U.S. university system says that this is legal, this is criminal, this is financial. This covers several different layers. If a person A, it doesn't matter what color, age, background, doesn't matter. Person X says, I want to go to this community college or university, doesn't matter, and I don't have the funds to pay for it up front, as most people don't overall, statistically don't have. I've got $50,000, to pay for this for over 4 years, cash. So, and let's say I only qualify for a certain amount of loans, a certain amount of God, I'm drawing a blank. Grants, etc. Things that they don't have to pay back. And they say, okay, so the government agrees with the university that person X will accrue $5,000 a year, and that's just a low number, in order to pay for the remainder of their education for this whatever degree they want. Whatever, in fact, again, whatever, this is very important, whatever degree they want. Gender studies, cultural studies, interpretive dance theory. I'm being a little bit exaggerative, but for the purpose of humor. For whatever degree you want, we're going to guarantee their loan. They can't go bankrupt. They can't fault on it. They can't, there's no version of getting out of this loan whatsoever. And the university says, yeah, hey, if we've got this person who's got guaranteed cash backed by the government to come in and pay for whatever we want to sell them and whatever they want to buy, which is basically what the university system is, then yeah, go ahead, come on. What do you want to study? Go into that. You want to study feminist theory? Hey, get a master's. In fact, get a master's or get a doctorate in that. Sure, go ahead. Yeah, good luck getting a job, and paying off your loans for 7 years of degree of education here. But yeah, go ahead. We'll sell you that. We'll sell you whatever the government will back to pay for. Not only will that happen, which propagates dumbass bullshit degrees that people should never ever be getting, or at least the majority or any percentage should not be getting. That's part A. Part B is oh, hey, I think we need another building to support the committee for X, Y, and Z for this minority bullshit to happen. Okay, well, we'll buy that building. Oh, what? Oh, and now we need another. Dorm to house these people. So we'll build that. Well, if we're going to build this building and build that dorm, we got to raise prices. The end result is, here's an analogy very quickly. If you were able to go to a car lot, a brand new car dealer, the government backed your loans. Okay, it didn't matter if you wanted a Lamborghini or a Kia, whatever. Okay, and the government backed your loans because, hey, do what you want. You just go, and we're going to back your loans. And so if you want a Lamborghini, or sorry, let me give you something more simple. If you want a Land Rover, and it's $100,000 Land Rover, the government's going to back it. You can't default on it, and the car dealer says, hey, if your credit doesn't matter, because it doesn't in this scenario, then yeah, hey, we'll sell you a Land Rover. I don't know how you're going to pay for it. Doesn't matter to me because you can't default on it. So we're going to sell you Land Rover. And my point is, it perpetuates a rise in prices because overall universities don't have to compete because they have guaranteed can't default on loans. If you went and bought a house, you can default on that, can't you? Right? Let's say you put 5,000 down, 10,000 down, 20,000 down, whatever you put down, you can still default on it, and that bank has a risk to giving it to you. The university doesn't have a risk to giving you that education that for whatever reason you seek. So maybe my analogy isn't perfect. My point is, it is not an equitable situation because it doesn't control for prices. And prices and control of it and competition is what meritocracy and the overall competition of American system is.
Oh, Steve, man, I could tell you if it's a meritocracy. And actually, what you're saying there about the education system being funded, there's actually something similar that's happening here, but it's not the education system. I think I told Nachi offline a while back about something called Cornerbrook Pulp and Paper, and
wait, sorry, I couldn't hear you, and I don't want to lose the rest of your conversation. Something Cornerbrook paper?
It's called Cornerbrook Pulp and Paper. It's on it's a company on another part of my province, and what it is that the government stepped in to shore up their to make sure that they keep continuing to pay their pension plan. They're actually stabilizing it. So if the company defaults on its obligations, the government is going to come in and take over the pensions. And this is a private company. Now, here's the interesting fact. In 2016, this company gave $20,000 to the Liberal Party, which is the party that's in charge right now in Newfoundland. And the premier said that, and who's the premier, by the way, for anyone who doesn't know, is like a governor. And he said, first of all, he said, I didn't know I had this. I didn't know I got $20,000, which for us, it's a relatively large amount of money to get. But what bothers me is that the government is now saying, listen, default on your loan, forget your responsibilities. If it all comes crashing down and you guys decide to boot, we'll pick up the slack. And they also, and here's the best part, they own a hydroelectric dam and they're using that as collateral. If they default on this loan, which I think is around $100 and something million, if they default, the government gives them I think for that hydroelectric plant. So we don't just take it, we pay them for defaulting.
Wow.
And yeah, it's pretty bad.
That's.
I live in a province with 500,000 people and $13 billion in debt, and the deficit this year is $800 million, and the government is celebrating that it's not $1 billion. Yeah, it's
For 500,000.
ridiculous.
And we're about to be in $21 trillion debt. I'm not saying I'm not saying your situation is minute, isn't worth worrying about.
No.
I'm just saying on the scale of things, we're driving a ship at 1,000 miles an hour, and maybe you're driving a ship at 120 miles an hour, and you have a better chance of changing direction than we do.
We honestly, unless we make the hard decisions, and I was telling Nachi off air that our province employs 10% of the people of this province work for the government.
Ugh, that's not good.
Yeah, so about 70 to 100,000 people work in some capacity for the government of Newfoundland and Labrador, or for the government of Canada, which is a frighteningly large number. And here's another interesting fact: talking about education, in my area alone, from 2014, I think I seen this study. 64% of this region, which has about 20-odd thousand people, has a high school diploma. That's it. Only 60-something percent.
Wow.
And 43% of those people cannot read at a level 3 literacy rate, which is the international standard for functional society.
Yeah.
So,
but wait, but real quick, one question:
sure.
If and this will show my lack of understanding of Canadian situation. If you're sorry, and if I understand correctly, you're kind of split in two. There's the Quebec side, and then there's the other side, and I forgot which is which.
Well,
one is more profitable than the other. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, please.
There's the western provinces, which are where the revenue really comes from. You've got Alberta, which I'm not sure if you've heard of. Is like the Texas of
oil sands.
Yep, I spent
the main producers of Canada.
Yeah, they're the big money makers. Then you have Quebec, which is this standoffish, grumpy French province, and
it has anything to do with them being French, by the way. Sorry to.
It's okay.
Sorry.
It's okay for me. It's okay. Yes, it might be. It's okay for me to say it because my mother's family is Acadian French, so I can knock them a little bit. And then
just a stereotype, whatever.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean,
stereotypes exist for a reason.
The white flag and all that. The cheese-eating surrender monkeys. I remember that old phrase. But and then you have the Atlantic provinces, which is Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, Newfoundland and Labrador, and that's essentially it. And they are we're kind of the south we're like the southern version of Canada. We're rural. We're not we're not industrialized to that extent. Our resources are primary based. I mean, Newfoundland's primary industries are fishing and mining, and we're not very good at either one anymore. We've a lot of overfishing and really bad mining decisions, but we'll get into that another time. So the western provinces that generate a lot of this income shoulder the burden. We have a system here called equalization, and that means that if it's essentially a redistribution of wealth is what it is that the federal government takes the leftover money from a lot of the profitable provinces, or takes a certain percentage, and distributes it to the provinces that are called have-nots. So they'll take this money and they'll say, okay, Newfoundland, you need so many $100 million or $1 billion this year. Here you go. Here's this much money. And then if you go above a certain income threshold, in terms of your surplus in that, you have to start paying the equalization so that other provinces who are struggling can get by. But if you're Quebec, it's completely different. Quebec last year received $10 billion in equalization and posted a $2 billion surplus. And yet they are still getting equalization. They're still getting this money from the government. The government says, well, we can't change it. It's supposed to be so many years between negotiations for the formula. Don't ask any more questions. Here's some poutine. Have a nice day. and everything is solved with poutine in Canada. By the way, that's how we have peace agreements. We all sit down over a delicious deep fried batter of cheese curds and French fries. But yeah. So Quebec, and this is actually a lot of animosity, and you get it in the Atlantic provinces, especially in Newfoundland. They have this long-standing rivalry with Quebec over the territory, the area known as Labrador, because in the 1920s, when Newfoundland was a country, we were actually an independent nation until 1949. And a lot of people don't know that. We had our own government. We even had a prime minister. We had a couple, and they were shit. They were just awful. I'll tell you about it sometime.
The last thing I remember was that I think in 1805 we tried under Jefferson, because for whatever reason he had this dumbass idea that we were going to invade Canada and take you over.
Yeah, that didn't work out very well.
While the English were still in America, by the way, they weren't out yet. They were still there, so they supported you. And it was like from my understanding of history, and it could be wrong because I'm not a historian. From my understanding of it, it was basically a stalemate, and we just kind of all withdrew, and acted like it didn't happen.
Well, we did burn down your White House, so
I thought 2012.
Oh yeah, it was. Sorry about that.
I'm a fan of history. Just real quick, let me write down, please. Let me write down your Twitter, because I can't see anything but
that's right.
The window.
And I wanted to promote for Ernest Snooks, because someone was asking for your YouTube channel, but you don't have one, right? You're just on Twitter and your podcast, and want to just tell people how they can access you.
Yeah, I'm thinking about doing a YouTube channel in the future. I just don't know how to do all the video editing stuff.
Well, at minimum, what's your Twitter, so I can at least contact you that way?
Yeah, it's just Ernest_Snooks, ERNEST, and then _SNOOKS. I also do the podcast, which is called In the Trenches, and that's you can find that on SoundCloud. Some of the older episodes. I'm cheap, so I haven't gotten the whole big long subscription.
Hey, we all got to start from zero. Everyone starts from zero. It just the only difference is how fast we change. That's all. So, some happen to be lucky, some don't have to be lucky. That's just how it happens. So don't ever fault yourself from saying I'm a low channel guy. Man, that doesn't matter. Everyone starts as a low channel guy, right? We all start from zero.
The funny thing is, most of my listeners on my podcast are from the Philippines. I'm not really sure why.
Really?
Hey, then you have a market that most Americans probably don't.
I'm not really sure what the Philippines is interested in local Newfoundland politics, because I told Nachi about our premier Dwight, and he's a character, to say the least. But
Elliot Spitzer from New York.
he makes Spitzer look fun.
Yeah.
But actually, fun fact, by the way, if you're a history lover, in the 1930s we had a prime minister here called Sir Richard.
I didn't hear what you just said. Sir something.
Sir Richard Squires was his name, and he was the prime minister of Newfoundland, and he got stealing some money, I should say, and we had it could be called a Canadian riot before we even joined Canada, because people got mad. They went up to the Parliament building in Newfoundland at the time and wanted him to come out, because they were going to very politely, I believe, lynch him.
Very politely. Sorry, I just have to laugh at that.
And he ran away.
It's so stereotypical. Very politely, fuck you in the ass. Just to let you know. Sorry, go ahead.
And so they threatened to lynch him, and he ran out the back door. The crowd goes through the building, throws a piano out the window, and then he had to kick through somebody's door and run. Waiting car, because if they caught him, they were going to kill him. And ironically, no one died in this riot. They spent like a couple of hours burning, looting, and stealing alcohol, which was
well, that's good.
Oh yeah, that got out their energy and then got them drunk, and then they stopped. And after that, the economic situation in the province got so bad that the next prime minister was a fellow named Alderdice, and he literally told the British, please come, we will get rid of our parliament, both houses of parliament, we will just let you run things, just don't make us pay any more money, because it was either that or we would default. And we gave up democratic governance until 1949, when we had another referendum to decide if maybe we were going to join Canada. Now, that's a big contentious issue here. We don't have a big separatist issue like in Quebec, but it rears its delightful head every now and then, and people posture and whinge about it. But we're never going to be independent.
It's a nice idea for people to kind of. It's like for America, the South will rise again, but everyone knows that's bullshit. It's not going to happen. We let exactly, and just very quickly, for at least 10 years, because this started back with probably Bush, that I remember from my personal experience, from my age, is that when Texas would talk about, or at that time the governor was Rick Perry, they would say, well, maybe we'll succeed. And the entire nation, the entire other 49 states would laugh their asses off at us, because they would say, oh, you fucking idiots. Can I cuss on your stream, by the way?
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. This is late for me to be asking, but I thought I heard a few cuss words, so I'm just kind of this way. You are idiots. What? Succeed? Do you understand the concept of the entirety of what that means, and the debt and anyway? So we were all laughed at. Well, what happened after Trump was elected? California said, "Well, hey, we might succeed."
I was going to say, Governor Moonbeam there is rambling on about it. Jerry Brown.
Oh, Jerry Brown. He's probably a decent guy. They just started talking about very quickly in reaction or in relevance to Canada, a $400 million California only universal healthcare, single payer healthcare system that they can't afford. Now, hey, I'm not saying, by the way, and I don't want to dominate the conversation, but I just want to make a couple quick points. Sure. I'm not saying that universal healthcare is a bad idea. I do have my reservations, and I won't go into all that. But most people try to compare U.S. to Canada, U.S. to England, U.S. to Sweden. But we are very different. We are 333 plus million people versus 30 million people, if I understand correctly, in Canada. 60 to 80 million people in the UK. 9 million people in Sweden, which are mostly all Swedens. So there are other variables involved with that. But let's remove all those other variables. Let's remove all those other countries that people like to compare us to. And Nachi, you might relate to this more. I don't know your history, but I think you and I are probably near the same age, at least having lived this long in America. From my understanding of what a single payer system would equate to, seems extremely similar to what the VA system is in America.
Yep.
Would you agree or disagree?
Well, that's what I'm trying to inform myself on. And I've started I've only done one video so far, but I wanted to do a series of how to solve the healthcare crisis here in the United States. And I got to tell you, man, the more I try to get into it and the more I try to see the numbers and stuff, I'm wondering if single payer, but in other words, single payer being that in other words, it would be that the veterans or Medicare for all, whatever. In other words, the government's paying for all of it. I wonder if that is maybe the best way to approach it, where you still have private companies, you still have private doctors, private services and all that. But I'm starting to just open up to that idea, because I'm like, damn, man, it is amazing the amount of control, however, that the insurance companies are getting. And right now, that I have to shop around for health insurance. My health insurance is coming out to like $700 a month, and I can't pay it.
Ooh.
Forget it.
Yeah.
I need through my life savings. I'd rather
Yep.
pay the fucking fine, which is going to be $1,000 for the year, but at least that I can handle.
Sure,
You know?
I understand. I completely understand what you're going through, because I am going through the exact same thing. Mine currently is, I think, because I'm in Texas, $670 a month, and if I just decide not to pay it, well, that's like 2 months worth, or less than 2 months worth. It's a month and a half, and I just don't have insurance. But I pay a fine, which to me is insane.
You shouldn't be
You're paying
fined for not having health insurance, though.
the government saying, I mean, if I break it down to the basics of what we have currently with Obamacare, which I don't want to get into all the political stuff of it. I'm just trying to say the details. The concept is, all right, American people, you're all going to get health insurance. And if you choose not to, we are going to charge you money for choosing not to purchase health care under this system. And that, to me, in a basic scenario, and maybe it's too simplistic, maybe it just is, it just seems not free. But there's a reason for it. And most people don't talk about this. Most politicians, most pundits, the reason that a person is charged for opting out under the current system is because there's an increased cost under the current system of saying, well, this all comes down to, I want free stuff, but I don't want to pay for it.
And
I want my kids covered until 26, but I don't want to pay for it. I want pre-existing conditions, even if I had cancer for 20 years. Okay, so let me pause that for a second. What if person A has been in 10 wrecks and they wanted to go get car insurance, and I can't speak for Canada because I don't know your Canadian.
Your insurance will go through the roof.
Yes, we understand. This is all cost versus benefit system.
Yep.
So we say, hey, insurance person, I want insurance, but by the way, I've been in 10 wrecks. Whether they're my fault or not, it doesn't matter. I've just been in 10 wrecks. Person B says, hey, I haven't been in any wrecks. I haven't gotten any speeding tickets. I'm an 80-year-old grandmother who barely drives, and you'll probably never cost me anything. I'll never cost you anything. So it's a risk versus investment, right? Can we all, us three, agree to that?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And that's why I was curious to hear. Ernest, do you want to get into horror stories about the Canadian single payer and fucking talk me out?
I do, because I'll tell you this. I know from very good sources, and this is actually, it's just common knowledge. I knew it a little bit before. The average wait to see a psychiatrist in this area is 3 years.
Wow.
3 years just to see a psychiatrist, just to talk to one. And to see it quicker, you literally have to get yourself admitted to the local psychiatric ward. You have to, in order for them to even see you. And I mean, that's a black mark on your life then, because that goes in the records. And you're done. So if you're depressed and you want to get some help, you've pretty much got to, as we would say, pull it crazy. And no offense to anyone who goes through these kinds of issues, of course. I just want to say that. And the other problem is that the biggest issue with the Canadian healthcare system and the cost is the huge thing. I mean, my province alone spends, I believe, 40% of its budget on healthcare. And you know what a lot of it is pencil pushers. It's administrators. It's these different committees and programs and systems in place. And we don't have enough frontline staff. I know people who came here to practice medicine, not in my area, but different places, and they were told, we want you to go and move to the bigger city because that's where we want to centralize the healthcare. So if you like this little town that you're living in and you're practicing in, don't get too comfortable. You will move eventually, or you're out of a job. And let me tell you, we don't have enough doctors here. My doctor that I have is in his 80s, and he has, like, I think it's 8,000 patients. That's his list. He has 8,000 different people who rely on him, and just to see him is a couple week wait. It's crazy. You go to the emergency room, which is definitely not an emergency room. It's it's the my cohort's room, really much. It's a social club. It's lined up, and then you're wait. That's why you're waiting 6, 7, 8 hours for something here, because everyone else is in there and they've got these little things. They've got a flu. They've got, my ass hurts because I scratched too hard. I don't know.
That happens in England too, I believe. I've heard Sergeant Cod mention that several times.
The biggest issue here, though. Oh, sorry.
No, please. I interrupted you. No, sorry. Please,
No,
please, I heard a pause. I just wanted to say something, but keep going. You have more to share about the differences between our system and yours than I do. So please continue, please. I'm sorry.
The other big thing is the pharmaceutical costs. If you don't have, you have to have insurance for that here. That's not covered under the Medicare system. If you do not have it, and if you're not on a sufficiently low enough income where the government chips in and pays for so much, you're paying in a pocket. I know people who have minor things like attention deficit disorder, and they need Ritalin to manage it. They're paying about $88 to $100 a month just for those pills, just that much. And imagine now you're making minimum wage, which is $10 an hour here, which sounds like a lot compared to some places in the U.S., but it's nothing. You can't live on it. That's 10% of your income there.
And that goes into real quick. Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt. Real quick, that goes into a whole different economic discussion regarding Seattle, California, and New York, which is the mandatory minimum wage increase, which sounds great to people who don't have very much, and I understand that because I have been there. But that also, the unintentional result of that is automation. They just use iPads at McDonald's instead of people. But
and there's also inflation. It's also, everyone seems to think here. Whenever I remember, I hear on the news.
Just keep going with that. I just wanted to add that little piece because that's never talked about on network TV and our network news in our state. Go ahead.
It's same here, and people here, they're like, I hear people say, "Oh, the minimum wage is going up to $11. It's going up to 12. We got to fight for 15." And I'm furious. I make minimum wage right now. I'll be honest. There's not much work in my area for people with my skill set. I used to X-ray pipelines, for God's sakes, and there's no work, so I work a small local job, and I enjoy it. It's pretty laid back and pretty good, but the money sucks. But hey, if you're happy, all I want to say. But when I have people come up and say, "Oh, listen, we need to fight for 15. We need to do this," and I'm just thinking, you idiot, you really think that they're going to just raise your wages and nothing else is going to go up? Every single thing will go up. The owners of the small businesses that are now forced to pay this $5 extra wage, they have to raise their prices. What do you think? You're going to take away their profit? And
if not, go out of business.
Exactly. And here, one thing people take advantage of is this student program. And what it is that the government pays, I believe, 75% of the wages for a certain amount of time for students. So if you're in high school and you want to work a summer job, the government's paying $8 out of your 10, which is, it's okay for some businesses, but people abuse it. I know people who've been laid off from their jobs, so they could bring in a student, and then when that student's done, they'll try to find another student, and so on and so on and so on. They'll keep rotating, and it's terrible. But back on, I'm sorry, I got a bit off topic there. Anyone who ever thinks that minimum wage going up is a wonderful thing all the time, it's honestly not. What you need to do is combat the inflation and the status and the the cost of living increases. You need to combat that. You need to make things more affordable. Not your wages going up doesn't mean jack.
Okay, real quick, what do you think stops things from being more affordable? What do you think stops things from an average person? Let's say a 19-year-old, well, yes, I'm driving to a different point, but I'm just trying to set up. No, it's okay. I'm just trying to set up another possibility. Let's say a 19-year-old kid wants to start I don't know, an ironing business. He wants to, I don't know what you call it in Canada. Laundromat. Sorry, yeah, it's not different than America. I'm just being stupid. Forgive me. A kid just wants to be entrepreneurial. Okay, and entrepreneurialism, in my opinion, and I'll be very quick with this. Entrepreneurialism is what has propelled America, which is what's different from a few other countries, if not quite a few other countries, to say, I'm going to step out, take a risk, and try this thing because I think there's a need for it. And many will be, some will be successful and some won't. And the ones that won't be successful, hopefully they'll learn, which is when they claim bankruptcy and things like that. They'll learn, hey, I did this, that didn't work out. Let me try this different thing. And they learn that because the market itself says, I don't want to pay $18 per shirt to be ironed. I want to pay $5 per shirt to be ironed, which is why, unfortunately, that leads to globalism and service being sent over to China, etc. That's deeper than I want to go into. But my point is, my overall point is that there's a cost benefit to everything. If you want something to be paid for by the government, that means two things usually. The government's going to regulate it.
Yep.
And in my opinion, the government doesn't regulate things very well. And I'll give the example of the VA system for America. And you've given the healthcare system for Canada, which is why I've heard of many Canadians and English people and other people come to America for certain elective surgeries because they couldn't get it fast enough if it was cancer, or they wouldn't even pay for it in time because it just wouldn't. There's a cost benefit to everything. Every single thing, there's a cost benefit to it, and that's just an economic reality. And to me, I'll be 1 minute or less. To me, it comes down to communism, similar to communism.
Yep.
If you have a whole nation, let's say North Koreans, if you have a whole nation of North Koreans who everything sucks, okay, everything, they work in the fields, they pick potatoes, they get paid a fraction of even the paid potatoes that they pick. It's almost human slavery, basically. I mean, I'm not trying to be political about this. I'm just trying to say, in reality, this North Korea sucks. If you said, hey, we'll give everyone the same thing, including all the upper people, all the political people, all the generals, everyone makes the same stuff. Well, that appeals to them because they aren't making nothing. They're poor. They're just trying to survive. In my opinion, in a political view, the concept of communism, which is an offset of socialism, is the basis of socialism, it just can't work because it's not based on merit. It's not based on what a person can try to achieve and be entrepreneurial and make risks and the consequences of it, etc. It's saying, hey, the big government will all protect you all as long as you just keep progressing the government and keep taking government jobs. We'll just keep helping you out. And by the way, you can't make the best decisions for yourself, but we can because we're the government, because we know better. Now I'm going to stop talking, and I would like both Ernest and Nachi to comment, if you could. You don't have to, on not just what I just said in the last 5 minutes of taking over the stream, and I apologize for that, but over the overall economic concepts that I've tried to propagate or suggest, overall, and going even back to college and government-backed loans, et cetera, which is all government being, putting their hands in the business. What are your, with my input, which doesn't have to be smart, doesn't have to be right. Is it just my concepts that as a person, as a human, try to evolve my ideas? What do you think about these ideas and how it affects people in a real world way versus, well, I like free stuff? Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I mean that's what I wish more people understood. I think if everyone truly understood economics, socialism wouldn't even be an issue. The one thing I am starting to wonder though is when it comes to healthcare, like it is with, for example, like it is with the military, like it is with the judicial system. I wonder if there's certain aspects that are inevitable where you may need to have some sort of collective I wish I knew the right word, but let's say, because I hate the word collective, but whatever. Yeah, a collective organization, the way we have our highway system and stuff. I mean, I think to a large degree, there is no escaping some government and some regulation. And that was the whole point of this podcast. The whole point of this podcast was to show not just the parallels between Canadian and US politics, but also the things that are just inevitable. And forget the politics. I think it always does come down to economics. And if more people truly understood that nothing is free, everything has a cost, how you deal with that cost is a separate issue. I don't think we'd be having half of the problems that we have throughout the world, for that matter.
No,
if people truly understood that.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with you, Nachi, and Steve. Definitely, I mean, you guys have hit the nail right on the head. And actually, I'll just give you a fun fact, Steve. I believe you're from Texas.
Correct.
Did you see the debate between Bernie Sanders and Ted Cruz on healthcare a while back?
A while back, could you narrow that down? Because we've had like a 2.5 year long, campaign situation.
Oh, I've kept quite a big eye on that one. That was no, I don't even want to get into that. But after the elections, they had Bernie Sanders talking about his stance on healthcare, and Ted Cruz. They had like this debate, and I think it's on YouTube. It probably definitely is. It was hosted, I believe, by CNN.
Like in the last 6 months?
I think it was. Yeah, it was in the last 6 months.
Okay, go ahead.
And in it, Ted Cruz, who I will admit I actually have a fair amount of respect for, but he was talking, and you were talking about Canadians not coming to America to get the health treatment. In this debate, Ted Cruz was talking about a Canadian. He called it a governor, and for Canadian, Ted really sucks at knowing about what you call the leaders of our provinces, because they're premiers. And
sorry, go ahead. I'm laughing with you.
Yeah, he's just like, well, you're one of their governors went down here for treatment, and as soon as that happened, it was me, my father, and a few other people were watching this at my place, and I'm just like, I knew who that premier is. And I actually texted, I tweeted Ted Cruz. I was like, dude, you're not a very good Canadian. I'm, it's a premier, but it turns out it was actually the former premier of my province, a fellow named Danny Williams, and he had to get. It was just at around the end of his premiership. He was toting on about Newfoundland. He was this Newfoundland first populist kind of guy. It was like a low budget Trump, I guess, with better hair, and he made his fortune doing
less Cheetos on his face.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. I'm interrupting you. I just can't help the jokes.
I love the banter. It's always fun. And Danny, his name is Danny Williams. So Danny was just like, yeah, Newfoundland first, and we need to fight for Newfoundland. This is, we have the best system in the world here. Newfoundland, it was fantastic. He has a heart problem, goes to Florida, and gets it and pays for it. The man is, he's a multimillionaire. He's worth, I think, $250 million. So, oof. Yeah, selling a cable company is worth a fortune up here. But So he went on down to Miami, I believe, and got treated, and then slinks back up. And he was talking about the healthcare system, and he had just put in so many millions of dollars for what's called the Health Sciences Center. It's the primary hospital in the province, and everyone jumped on him. They were just like, how dare you? You're promoting us. How can you not support public service? And how can you not do this? And how can you not do that? And he just looks at them. And he goes, because I can afford it. And he just and like 3 months later he quit. He just said, I'm done. I'm cashing in. And now he owns a giant swath of land outside the capital city, which he is now building a Costco. And it's kind of like a mini kingdom. It's called New Galway, if anyone wants to look it up. But everyone calls it Dannyland because
which means he probably had bought the land before Costco wanted it, sold it to Costco. He bought it at a low price, sold it to Costco at a high price, and now he's profiting multiple millions off it, right?
Oh, pretty much. Like what it is that while he was the premier, all his assets are supposed to be in a blind trust, and for some reason during this blind trust stage, he managed to buy this vast amount of land outside the city for peanuts, and he's turned it into pretty much a town. It's kind of a suburb, but I think it's going to be a new town. And he managed to steal the Costco from what we call the town. It's just the nickname of St. John's, and the town and the townies, which are the people who live in the city. They're furious that they've lost their Costco's, and that was literally on the news for a week here.
And that's just part one, I expect. And I'm sorry to interrupt you again.
Yeah.
Part one is part two is all the roads, construction, expansion of industry and commerce in that area because the Costco is there. I expect, and I could be wrong, just because I've seen it happen here before in the U.S. That was just part one of his total valuation that he gained because, and here's what it comes down to, because government had a hand in what was going to happen, either because he had a secret inside deal or because he could talk to the Department of, I don't know what your Department of Transportation is in Canada, but for us, that's what we call it. Hey, there's a Costco here. And, there might be this here, and there might be that here, and maybe a hospital here. So, hey, Department of Transportation, this looks like this might be a developing area. So you might want to put a highway through here, or whatever you call it in Canada. Yeah, I'm not demeaning you.
No, I understand.
Believe me, I'm not demeaning you. I'm just trying to respect that we call things different things here. But because that's happened in America for at least 70 years that I can understand history of. Probably before that. That's just what I can recall history of for us. And okay, my point is, and I know I'm interrupting you, and I really apologize for it. But my point is, because the government has so much power to influence others with contracts, and I would even say, I'm dropping on the word. It starts with an L. They come in and represent bigger companies, and I know
what you're talking about. Damn.
God, why am I freaking losing my head right now? Not labor, but it's close to it. You probably know what I mean.
Yeah.
They represent bigger things by one person, and they pay them millions of dollars.
Kind of like
they come in basically because government has that much power. So, and this comes down. So let's reduce this down further. Let's remove some common denominators. That means that if government is so big that there are so many different players involved in it, and Nachi, I hope you hear what I'm saying here. That because there's so many different middlemen and so many different players and so many different people employed by the government, that they all have their fingers and tentacles and hands involved in influence and pushing and pulling and against this party, for that party, that they get, they can get a $200,000 salary like Bernie Sanders, by the way.
I got a story for you after, Steve. You'll laugh at this one too. But go on.
And somehow he's worth millions.
Same with Obama.
Yes. Well, I wasn't going to go there because people would call me racist. I wasn't going to. I was going to go that direction.
I'm a Canadian. It's okay. I'm allowed to make these comparisons because we're so friendly. We just can't be bad.
I know, but I'm just trying to look at facts here. The facts are, if a person makes X number of dollars a year, even for 30 years, how are they worth $10 million plus dollars? I'm just throwing that number out there. I don't know if he's actually worth. I'm just throwing. I'm just giving an example. Anyway, my point is, if and I've already gone over my 2 minutes. I'm sorry, because I do try to regulate so I don't dominate the conversation. If this is happening, then it's easier for me to accept the concept. If we did reduce the size of government, and by the way, and this is a capitulation on my part, okay. Republicans in America always love to tout. We want smaller government. Tea Party. We want smaller government. We want
the military. They don't. Yeah, fucking. That's the one.
Well, yeah, and that's a bit more complicated. Sweden doesn't have a military because we pay for their military. So, and that's just one country. So that gets difficult, and it maintains our superiority and all that stuff. It's hard to. I'm not denying it. I'm just saying it's harder to get into that one. I don't think we should have 50,000 troops in Ramstein in Germany.
No.
As an example. So I agree. I agree with the concept, but it is a bit more complicated. But I don't know enough about it, so I can't go into it. I'll just try to go into what I do know. If Republicans say we want a smaller government because XYZ, all the things that we this is their pet project, their pet project. Then sometimes I stutter. Then when they have power and they don't fulfill it, which is what they're doing exactly right now, they're lying. And this is my version of saying, hey, conservatives, libertarians, you're lying. If Paul Ryan, you're saying you're a conservative, but yet you don't want to reduce the size of government because of this whole concept that I'm trying to explain, you're lying and you're bullshitting and fuck you. So you're playing politics. So this is me criticizing my own set of ideas that other people, that politicians say that they agree to, but they aren't acting on. And that's my own capitulation.
No, it's the whole problem with the hypocrisy behind all of them. And that's why we ended up with Donald Trump, because people got fed up with both fucking parties, with the Democrat and the Republican parties. It's not that difficult to see why he became president, dude.
Let's throw a brick in the window.
Exactly. When people get to that point where there's nothing to lose, they're like, fuck it, man.
Yeah, it's really here. I mean, in my town at least, I ran for councillor here a while back, and I was just moved back after a couple of years in the oil sands, and I'm not afraid to admit I got the crap kicked out of me. Like, I got 35 votes, and the other guy got 500. But
wow.
I'm trying again in September. There was reasons. That guy was pretty popular, and I knew I was going to lose. But we have this area has I'll give or take 7,000 people.
Real quick, what is your area's main industry?
God, that's actually honestly, it depends really. Mostly it's people who work in Alberta. They fly in, they fly out, and they also work for a mining company. I don't want to get into too much detail.
That's fine. No, I don't know anything about your area, so I just wanted to kind of get a slight background.
Fishing, mining, a little bit of forestry.
Resources.
Yeah, it's a primary resource economy here, and honestly, government services. That's a big employer here.
Yeah, like schools. Schools are a big resource employer. I mean,
and also
government
honestly,
employer.
Government benefits. In my town alone, 20% of the people are on government assistance, which is a frightening large amount of people.
How long can that last? In other words, what is your debt? I don't understand. Sorry, I don't. It's not that I don't understand. I haven't researched the overall Canadian financial system. What is your debt versus deficit right now?
In my province, we
No.
owe,
Sorry, not your province, because your province is not separate from others. You're all together, right?
we all have
You all get
individual
extra money.
debt. Oh, we do. I'm not.
What is the total?
The Canadian net debt. I'm not 100%. I checked on it a while back.
That's all right. I was just curious. I didn't.
It's in the hundred of billions. I know that. And we're running a deficit. Trudeau told us we're going to run the deficit, and the free weed was a very good.
Which never worked out.
And you were talking about before that. Oh, sorry to interrupt you, Ernest.
No, please.
When you were talking
Please
about
comment.
that debt before, that debt was just for. You were talking about that was just for Newfoundland, right? That's just for that province alone.
Well, it's 12. It's 12 billion. 13. Sorry, it's 13 billion. It's just for Newfoundland, and honestly, we got most of that debt in the last 10 years because we decided it was a great idea to jump on the green bandwagon and build a giant hydroelectric dam. And we thought it was going to be $5 billion, and it ballooned to $9.
Oh yeah, I can imagine with the fucking construction. Wow. So then again, look, that was another thing that I wanted to talk about, man. With the parallels, the corrupt.
But is that an investment? In other words, if you spend this much money now, is it going to produce for the next 25 years?
No, actually, it's not going to pay. It's not going to turn a profit for about 20 years, according to government. And most of the money is going to the province of Nova Scotia because their energy company, which is called Emera, is a big investor in it. This is a completely government-run operation.
Government run.
And the other problem is they hired this Italian company. And I'm not sure what an Italian construction company knows about building in Labrador is cold. This is where they're building it. It's this really cold place. It's like a
Look at the Alps.
Kind of. It's kind of like a slightly.
I'm just joking with you. Go ahead.
It's like Norway, but with a lot more moose. But they gave these Italian guys a load of money and said, "Go build us a dam," and the Italians went way behind schedule. And this was under the Conservative Party, so the Progressive Conservatives screwed up on this, and I'm the first one who will say that. And so the Liberals who are in power now were shouting, we got to shut it down. We have to stop this. It's going to bankrupt us, and it is
too late.
And oh God, by the time the Liberals got in, and I remember this on the campaign, I was in St. John's, and it was me. And he knew my family. He's a family friend, but he was a high-level member of the Liberal Party. And I sat there and I was just like, how's the financial situation? And he just stares at me blankly and goes, well, he said, we really don't know how bad. He said, we know the cupboard is bare, but we don't know how bad. And meanwhile, the guy who's about to be the premier is out promising everything. We're gonna. And the slogan was "A Stronger Tomorrow." That's what it was. It was just bullshit. And I don't like to swear, but on streams at least. But it literally was.
We're gonna dox you. Go ahead, keep swearing. We're gonna dox you. No, I'm joking. Go ahead. I just like to give some brevity to the situation. Go ahead.
Oh no, I laugh that we laugh, but we're all dying on the inside because it's just bad. And all we can do is laugh is because anyway, long story short, they knew how bad it was. They had a general idea, but they were still making these promises. And then when Muskrat Falls, and this is the name of the project, look it up. It's just a cluster. So and so. I don't want to say anything higher than shit on the stream. No offense. But it's a huge boondoggle, and that's actually what the CEO of the government-owned energy company said. And after he fired the last guy and gave him a $6 million settlement for firing him, I'm not, and you'll laugh at this. Everyone we fire gets a severance. So if anyone wants a job, the public service of Newfoundland and Labrador might be the place for you. You'll get you get paid for getting fired.
For getting fired, not getting fired.
So then why ever work for a private company where you're actually responsible for your own performance?
There's really, honestly, the best place. When I was growing up, there was two options: government, Alberta. You either went to Alberta and worked in the private sector, or you stayed in Newfoundland and worked for the government. And
what were the percentage of both of those? If you said the total populace of Alberta, sorry, I don't know your area. Please forgive me.
Newfoundland is about 500,000 people, so probably I would say, I think the workforce we have is about 300,000 people who are actually working in the workforce. I believe about maybe 10-15% are working in Alberta, but these guys are making, on average.
No, sorry, not just Alberta. How many are working for the government, and how many are working in the private sector?
10% of the population works for the private sector, and I believe
private sector.
Oh, the government. I mean, the government. The government works for that. And if I am not mistaken, and please forgive me, I didn't expect that question, so I'm a little bit off of my stats.
No, that's okay. I know I'm asking a lot of details, but I'm kind of a fan of details.
And Steve, listen, we got a live stream sometime, so hook me up on Twitter, and I'd really like to do.
I'm totally looking forward to it.
And Nachi, we'll do this again too sometime.
Yes, which, by the way, Nachi, thank you so much. I truly, truly appreciate you letting me on and talking and letting me have the area to ask questions and stuff, because I just really appreciate these kind of discussions that have a point. I also really enjoy discussions where we just shoot the shit and we cut at each other and we joke around and it's one big laugh session. But these topics are, for me, very, not just interesting, but they're also very important, because I can't help but I can't ignore them, because I have a child, and everything that we do right now, we're going to pass on to our children and our grandchildren, etc. And I just can't help but I can't stick my head in the sand on it. So anyway, I'd really, really do appreciate you letting me on. I'm a nobody. You never even heard of me before. So again, thank you so much for giving me the time and the opportunity to talk. And probably, unfortunately, I've dominated more of the stream than I should have. I'm just really passionate and excited about these topics, and I do want y'all's feedback. So when I say I think the government XYZ, I would like both of y'all's feedback. I was going to ask for that again in about 3 minutes when you were done with your point, but I do want feedback, because I'm not perfect. My decisions are not solid and set in stone. We're discussing difficult things that most people don't discuss ever in their lives.
No, that's the thing. I would love to. Sorry, I was just going to say, I would love to, as I go along doing the streams and stuff, eventually, man, I'd like to be able to make these more into action, because I think it's great to have the discussions and to shoot the shit with the ideas and all that, and compare and contrast, and then see the similarities, like this, like with Canada. But at one point or another, how do you solve the actual problems?
That's deep.
My idea for that, like I said, in Newfoundland we have 10% of the people who are working for the government, and that's a big issue in its own place, because it doesn't give you that entrepreneurial spirit. Like, when my grandfather was younger in the 1930s, 1940s, and even his father, my great grandfather, who was a blacksmith, which is a weird profession to have in the 30s, but I digress.
Well, they still needed shoes for horses and things like that. They're still.
That's I'll tell you about this sometime, Stephen.
But go ahead. I don't. Sorry, I diverted you.
No worries, man. But
I'm just agreeing with you.
Back then, in Newfoundland, before we joined Canada, you had to work. You had to go out, pick scrap metal. You had to farm, and actually, everyone had a backyard garden, and you had to work hard, and you quit school at grade 5, grade 6. My grandfather quit at grade 5.
Yeah. And mine at 10.
Yeah, and you worked, and if you didn't work, you died.
Yeah.
And you either starved to death or died of tuberculosis, or cholera. or I should say dysentery. I'm just watching that old Yukon.
Oh, the
Trail,
whole
that
mess of
game.
things you died from. The Earth wanted to kill you, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, and plus Newfoundland, if you look it up, it's freaking cold. But
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot about that part.
and so the entrepreneurial spirit was there, and people worked hard. I mean, in my town, there was businessmen who started off as, you know, pretty much the equivalent of a sharecropper, and ended up, you know, owning stevedoring companies, owning taxi businesses, apartments. Because around here there were several American bases all over Newfoundland, and the Americans brought in the money. I knew a man who was 93 years old. I used to drink with him at the pub, and he told me, and this is crazy because we had a system here called the merchant system, and I'll explain that in a little bit because this is really interesting because it's a strange form of capitalism. But he said under the Americans, he didn't get a paycheck until the American base set up during the war. He never seen money. Everything was credit. And what it was, and this is how I'm. And by the way, I'll get into why I'm talking about the entrepreneurial spirit right quick, and then I'll go back to the merchant system because you guys will want to hear this one. This is fascinating. The issue is in Newfoundland is that when Confederation came, when we joined Canada in '49, the government of Canada was pretty much bribing us. They just said, "Listen, you guys have such a hard life. It's a hard scrabble. You know, let us help you. Let us pay you for every child you have. You know, it's a baby bonus they called it. Let us, if you can't work, we'll help. We'll help you. We'll give you this. We'll give you that." And the Newfoundlanders said, "Oh, geez, boy, listen here. I can have all my kids here. My kids are under 5. By God, I'll get $3 or $4 a month for them." And that's the first hard money they'd seen. You know, and so when the time came to vote, they voted, and they voted for Canada. The first time they lost, Canada lost, but they kicked up enough of a fuss that the British who were in charge decided, okay, we'll have another one, and give or take, let's just say a few things got changed, and they kind of pulled a Hillary on the whole thing, and fudged a few numbers, and congratulations, we're all Canadians. But
sounds like Spain and Greece.
It kind of did, because I mean, we lost the entrepreneurial spirit. Because why would you want to work hard and make something yourself when the government gives you money? The government gives you enough to buy food, to buy your alcohol, buy your cigarettes, put gas in your car. I mean, you're not rich, but if you can enjoy living basically, then there's no one kicking up a stink. And so, that entrepreneurial spirit goes down, and this cycle of poverty, which is endemic in Newfoundland and Labrador, and some parts of Canada as well, it keeps on going because people say, why should I go out and work minimum wage when I can make just as much money on benefits? Because, Captain Canada's here to take care of me, or the big Canuck is always watching, I guess is the best way to say it.
And they deserve it.
Oh, you said the big Canuck. The big Canuck is always watching, you said?
Yeah, it's like Big Brother. It's the Canadian version of Big Brother.
Canuck.
Yeah.
That's funny.
It's just some bearded lumberjack with a case of Molson under his arm who's always watching us. But I digress. He looks kind of like Gavin McGinnis, but much more manly. But another interesting thing is that there was a system here called merchants, the merchant system, and what it was these capitalists who, and I hate to use that word because I sound like Che Guevara, but these capitalists who lived in St. John's, and what it was that everything here was bought on credit. And say if you're a fisherman, you need parts for your motor for your boat, you need nets, you need new anchor every now and then. You know what I mean? You need all the basic supplies. And you also need food, because once the fishing season's over, the winter comes, and unless you're going seal hunting, which, by the way, if anyone can, please buy seal products from Newfoundland and Labrador. We need the money. Got to shill my province a little bit.
All right.
But yeah, it's great stuff. Seal skin. But anyway, they would go to their merchant, and the merchant would say, okay, so how much do you need? Well, I need this much margarine and butter. I need this much bread. I need this much and this much. And I need my things for the season. And the merchant said, okay, that'll be so much money. And the guy says, well, listen, man, I can't afford that. I mean, the price of fish is low this year. The price for codfish is low. The merchant says, listen, don't worry about it. I'll lend you the money, and I'll take it on credit. And listen, when you bring in your fish, you let me handle that, and we'll use your fish to pay off the debt.
Yeah.
And the merchant would set the price. And you know what? By God, that year that price of that fish was a little bit lower than the cost that the fisherman needed to pay off his loan.
Or at least that's what he saw.
Well, it was all in a book. Every merchant had a ledger. And this old fellow who I was telling you about before he seen his paycheck, he told me about it. He said every little thing he did, and I was fascinated when he said this. He said every little thing that merchant did in transaction was recorded in this big book, and he would take it every night, lock it up in the safe, and guard it. He would guard it with his life, because he controlled the people. The local merchant in your area ran the show, and you couldn't move. It was serfdom. It was essentially indentured servitude, is the best way I can say it, because you couldn't leave unless the debt was paid off, and you never got that debt paid off. That was the way the system kept up. The fisherman worked and worked and worked, and the merchant, he might have been a nice fellow, but you would never manage to pay off that debt. And shucks, try again next
Level
year.
of control.
It was, and then that's the only good thing that came out of Confederation, is that we smashed it, because hard capital came in, and I'll say this: thank you, Americans, for contributing in World War II, because that actually smashed the system of servitude in Newfoundland, because the Americans had money, and it was paper money. We didn't have this stuff. It was all credit. And they came in, and capitalism flourished, and there was entrepreneurs. Like I said, people started off as farmers and fishermen, ended up owning small businesses, apartments, all this. And so they actually inspired and set up the entrepreneurial spirit, and then the Canadians kicked the living crap out of it with benefits. So,
let me make an argument against both of us, or sorry, excuse me. Let me make an argument against my argument, to be fair, because I have to be fair. I have to look at the overall view in history, and not just say my side is correct and there's no negatives, because there are negatives. There are negatives to capitalism, and especially pure capitalism. And I hope you're both listening to me. And I say hope both, because Nachi, I appreciate that you're letting us talk. But if you want to chime in at any moment, please do, because I'm not.
I was going to say
really,
in a little bit, I was going to cut it short, because especially I know that for Ernest, he's like an hour and a half ahead of time.
No,
So
you're right.
I'm
you're
good
right.
for a little bit, but
no, and either way, I gotta be. I also gotta be.
yeah,
No, I understand.
definitely.
I understand. Whoever's got.
Go ahead, because I'm almost willing to bet that what you're about to say is what I also think as well, and it's just those are the inevitable things. But go ahead.
Yeah. So, whoever's got the lowest denominator of time, please speak up, because I have less restrictions than maybe both of you. Anyway, point is. So let me make a point against my own position. Capitalism is not perfect, and I'm not defending it. I do believe that overall, some regulation, and that's highly debated, and that goes into a whole nother argument, and we don't have time for that. Some regulation on capitalism, I think, is necessary. I do believe is necessary, not just think. I do believe is necessary. Because if we look at American history, and let's just very quickly jump back to, let's say 1910, early 1900s. Big money people, the Rothschilds, the Carnegies, the etc. You can go on from there if you know what I'm going with. They had so much money that if X number of workers complained about health regulations or complained about falling off beams while building the Empire State Building, oh, well, tough. They died. Get someone else. So I am compassionate. I do have emotional compassion with the concept of an imbalance of power from big corporations that can just squash their workers, because it is a symbiotic balance, whether either side want to admit it or not.
Well, no, for sure, for sure.
I agree.
The problem that comes, in my opinion, is when one side gets too powerful than the other. So I'll give an example. You already know what I went with, the big company side. So I'll give the union side. And I'm a fan of the unions in the early 20th century. And where I live in Texas, in the 1970s, and I wasn't alive then, and I certainly wasn't cognitive then, but what I was told by many people who I've worked with in hands-on labor, I mean, I didn't grow up rich. I did manual labor most of my life and still do, is that I would be grinding on metal pipe with a grinder and hopefully goggles that the company supplied me. And if they didn't supply it with me, then I got it myself. Okay, this is the level I'm at. Was at. And if a metal shard hit my eye, hopefully I was able to tell the supervisor. I won't go into that. Sorry, I'm tangenting. All right. So what happened in the 1970s in my area, and this isn't meaning for all areas, but this is just the anecdote example of imbalance of power, was that the unions in my area were so powerful that I was even told, and y'all might not believe this, but the guy told it to me with a straight face, and I have no reason not to believe him. He said that in around the late 70s, that when they went on break, lunch break, 4-hour breaks, every 4 hours you took a break, whatever, they actually had tents set up that were under the radar enough that they had hookers in these tents. I know this sounds extreme, but I'm just saying the power of unions, the power of the collective is the point. That they had hookers. They'd go and they'd screw a hooker, finish their quick sandwich of lunch, and go back to work, working where they wanted to. The point is, they overextended their power over the companies, and it reversed. It's a pendulum. Okay, he didn't quite say that, but I interpreted it as it was a pendulum of power swing. So at that time, the unions had much more power than the companies did, and then it changed. Regulation, lobbyist, that was the word I was trying to think of an hour ago, sorry, etc. They got laws changed, broke the unions, go back and forth. So my overall point is that there needs to be a balance of both the big companies who are making money and have the ability to get contracts in the Gulf of Mexico, etc., and the local guy who is 20 years old. Maybe he's not smart enough to get a degree. Maybe he just shouldn't be getting a degree. Maybe he should be a plumber. Maybe he should be a welder, because not everyone's going to be a psychologist. But not everyone's going to be an engineer, because that's just reality, right? We all have garbage men. Can we agree on that?
Yep.
So the overall push for everyone should go to college, I think, is insane and stupid and misguided.
I only have a skilled trade. I'm sorry to cut you off there. I did non-destructive testing. And,
good. That's a trade. That's a trade.
It is.
You came out of you have a skill that someone else doesn't have. You can market, hopefully, if there's a market for it, and etc. So again, it all comes back to a balance. The big companies needs their employees, and they need their employees to be efficient, and not segmented, and not angry, and not resentful of their bosses and managers, etc. Unfortunately, what we always encounter is these pendulum swings back and forth, fuck each other.
Yep.
And they take advantage of things. I've heard of situations where union guys, were sued, or some version of user union lawyers to sue to get their job back, and then like 2 years back pay, And then they ended up just walking off the job and saying, screw you, I'm going to take the back pay and then go to some other job and make lots of good money too. Well, that's not cool. That's not equitable. That's not reasonable. And I don't know the answer. So Nachi mentioned probably an hour and a half ago of not only does he want to talk about these situations, but he wants to talk about answers. And I do too.
Yeah.
But these answers require people to be reasonable.
No, for sure.
And
I think we're getting better and better at it, because one of the things that you were talking about, and it's true, I wish more people understood that there's a natural push and pull. There's a natural balance between labor and what I guess you would call the capitalists or the owners. And that's inevitable, you know, and sadly enough, I think what it is that in the end, not all people are created equal, dude. And not everybody is as smart, and not everybody's as ambitious, because even the smart people are not that ambitious. And there's a lot of really ambitious people that are not that smart. And then that is, I guess,
that's life.
Yeah, that's
life.
The
overly educated useless people.
And that's why it's so difficult. But I think things are getting better, man. When you see there's a really good documentary on Henry Ford that I saw a little while back ago. And wow, that was the first time that I realized, now I see why unions exist. And
wait, real quick. Sorry, I'm interrupting you, but I don't want to lose this because I want to watch it. When you said the documentary, because I've learned a lot from documentaries, and there's both sides of documentaries. Do you remember where you saw it from, or the name, or the source, or the website, or?
Let me look it up right now on YouTube.
If you can. I know I'm putting you in a spot, but I'd like to advance my knowledge from this.
Henry Ford documentary. Let's see. It's mostly black and white. Okay, yeah, I think it's insofar as I could tell. Let me see. Let me make sure I mute this okay, it's muted. If you just look it up, I believe, yeah, it's just Henry Ford : documentary here. I'm gonna actually put it on the side chat. I'm gonna put the link on the side.
I don't see a side chat. Oh, sorry, a group chat. Is that what it's called?
Well, the little chat that's going on. Like if you're watching this, you know what is live to the actual people.
You were literally like the second live stream I've been on my life.
Oh, I see.
I've watched like a year of streams, watched other people because I enjoy watching streams, but this is my second one.
This is also honestly, this is my second one too. To be honest, Nachi.
So this is the third one that I host. It's the third one I host.
That didn't work.
I'm gonna try to set up a live stream channel, and you know what? I would love to have you guys on sometime, and we could actually discuss, you know, what we can do to solve these problems, because I know it's not a cut and dry pace for Canada, Florida, and Texas, but by God, we can inspire somebody.
So far, we're trying to diagnose the problem, which I think is important, to diagnose it correctly, and then give a prognosis of how to correct it. Fortunately, us three from what little I've been around y'all seem very reasonable and able to listen and not argumentative, and you're not calling me a fucking asshole, white supremacist, cunt, whatever, you know. I think more, yeah, whatever. I'm more pessimistic than Nachi is, and I'm sorry to say that, but I naturally am, because I've seen so much video and accusations and evidence. I say evidence, I'll just say accusations, that the people who are growing up in high schools are being influenced, and then they go into college, and it's amplified by 100-fold.
Yep.
And then you end up getting what's called, you know, the evergreen, if y'all heard of that situation, or the in California, the Berkeleys, or the DePauls.
But they all, let me tell you something, they all grow up out of that, man. I think.
But do they? Because we are in a generational situation where, and I say that because I used to work in the education industry, where my stepmother and my grandmother were both teachers. And I remember listening to them and hearing them. And then when I got into that workforce of the education system itself, I basically saw, and this this maybe just be anecdotal, but it's all I've got to judge by, along with what I see on the internet and TV, is that excuse me, is that uh, the parents who should be raising their kids without tolerating bullshit are, for whatever, well, I have a theory, but I won't go into it. Single motherhood, basically.
No, for
tolerating
sure.
Tolerating bullshit.
Yeah.
They're not they're not checking their kids and saying, no, kid, you're being a little shithead. Do your fucking homework. Don't cuss your teacher. Don't cause problems in school, and don't be a little asshole. Okay.
Now, if they do that here,
Sit up.
Child Protective Services takes them.
Well, that was another topic that I didn't get into yet, and it wasn't going.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Sorry. You have 3 laws that we don't have in America that are going to cause Canada to fail before we do, and I won't get into that. That's another. We'll do another stream on that later, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. My point is, the overall point is, again, I'm sorry dominating. The point is that the attitude and situational awareness is that basically we have adults who have the mentality of children raising children to perpetuate the same thing since about 1970.
No, I agree that there's that too, but I think,
and it's getting worse. It's getting worse.
I think it'll get worse if we don't do something about the whole welfare benefits. And if that,
I very much
shit.
agree with you, Nachi. Listen, as someone,
you went there before I did. I can't believe it.
Now,
not I can't believe it. I'm usually the first asshole called a racist that
no, and it
goes that direction.
Hey, you can go after welfare here. You can go after benefits here because it's mostly poor white people. So
well, for us, it is that also, but it's our demographics are multiplied times 100 because we're 330 million.
Definitely, but now
sorry, times 10, times 10, times 11.
But when you have, like, in my area, you have the like we call it social assistance to make it a nice word. When you have social assistance, that's 20% of the population. Or at least in my area, no politician is gonna anger them, because you know what, they will vote.
Their votes. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. And now, mind you, not a lot of people vote. Voter turnout here is terrible. You don't even want to know how low it is. I think it's in like
I think it comes down to, if you offer free stuff at some point, it's going to be 10 times harder to retract it. Whatever it is. It's
almost impossible. It is, because listen,
for whoever it is, whatever demographic, whatever state, whatever area. If the government offers free stuff, to say no, we shouldn't be having that free stuff because we need to be more responsible, it's the downfall of our society, basically.
Well, here's a funny thing, is that here, if you get sick and you're on government assistance and you need to go to, say, St. John's, which is the capital, like, again, for treatment, the government will pay to fly you there. And I know, because I went as an escort for a friend of mine who was sick, and they needed someone to go with them. So I went. They paid for my plane tickets. And that's about $800 just to go from my end to the
for
capital.
You.
Just for me.
Times 2.
Yep. So $1,600. And
times 4, because you got to go back.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyways, go ahead. Sorry, I'm just putting some practical numbers to it. Go ahead.
And they did, and they were talking about taking it away. And as soon as they did, people were not happy. And it was even smaller things, because we also pay for their taxi runs. So if you're on government assistance and you have to go into town for something, the government will pay a taxi company to take you in and out. And they cover so much, and it's this dependency. And you have people come on there and on the local chalk shows on the radio and say, listen,
I made us tangent into some different areas there. I apologize for that. I know you're wanting to try to bring this stream to an end,
Yep.
to a close. Again, I just want to just truly share my appreciation that you let me speak and you invited me on. And
Same with me, Nachi.
at any point, Nachi, that you or Ernest want to contradict or say, hey, but wait a minute, Stephen, what about this? Please do so, because my ideas need to be challenged, just like I challenge other people's ideas.
Same here. Same here.
So that the concept of the iron sharpens iron. I won't turn angry. I won't yell. I won't scream. I won't be an asshole. And hopefully, more importantly, hopefully I won't interrupt you. I do sometimes slightly to try to, kind of progress the drill down of the topic for the sake of time. Again, I know I'm repeating myself for the 27th time. I just appreciate your time and your availability to let me speak, and at other opportunities that are appropriate and are shared amongst your other fans that you would like to talk about certain things and that I might have something to contribute. I would love to join again, but I'm not going to beg. Nope. I know a few people. I know a few YouTubers who constantly beg to say, "Hey, let's do a collab." I'm sure you probably know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to say his name. I'm not going to do that because that we share. The whole point, we need to share ideas, and I'm not the only person with ideas, and other people have ideas. And anyway, I'm going to shut up now because I'm yet again rambling. So thank you so much.
Yeah,
the one thing I will say is I gotta cut it short now because my wife.
Yeah, I understand. And, I understand. That's why I'm trying to bring it to an end, but I keep extending it even though I'm trying to bring it to an end. So thank you so much. Have a great night. And I'd love to see another stream.
No, for sure. I try to do them Wednesdays at 9 p.m. That's what Wednesdays I'm trying to do.
Hey, real quick, do you know who Marty Flavius is?
Heard of him.
What about you, Nachi?
Nope, no, I never heard.
Okay. My point is he's a friend of Failure's, and he has a Discord. I think Failure might eventually get a Discord if he doesn't already. I don't know. I haven't got the latest. My overall goal, and maybe it's silly, but I think organizationally it would be efficient for us as similarly like-minded people who are kind of have some ideas together or would like to talk to each other, is if somehow we were able to have a master list.
Yeah.
I know that's grand, but the overall point is it could be very simple, is a text list on a channel that says, if you want to submit a stream time, click here. And then you click on to say there's Wednesday, and then you click on Wednesday, and then you say, well, I'd like to have mine at 6:30, but then you see 4 other people that has there at 6:30, and you say, well, that might inform you, Nachi, to say, well, if I have mine at 6:30 while 4 other people have there at 6:30, maybe that's not very efficient. Maybe I want to push mine to 7:30. My point is, if we can communicate to each other in a more efficient way, then we might be able to reach a wider audience so that we're not having one stream compete against another stream, and therefore they suck users again, they flood against the opposite direction. And that's for the creator itself, and for the content viewer like myself and maybe Ernest, is that maybe we don't even know you have a stream going on at 6:30 on Thursday. I'm throwing that out there. Maybe I don't know that because there's not a central.
The way I do it is yeah, of course, there's so many of us, the YouTubers and shit like that, and people who are doing live at the same time. I don't see the conflict because you don't really have to be on it live. You could always catch it later. You know what I mean? That's the way I do.
But if I don't know it's happening, then I can't watch it either way.
Oh, okay. Because see, for me, my YouTube experience is through the computer, because I know for a lot of people it's all through the phone. For me, it's the computer. I'm a geek in that sense.
Me too.
My computer, and so I'm just looking, and like, since as it is, I already, you know, I do drawings and graphic design and writing throughout the
I
day.
gotta commission you sometime, by the way, because you do excellent work.
Nothing, bro.
And
Well, I'm sorry. I'm dragging this longer than you wanted to. You want to go back to your wife? I apologize. I'm just trying to throw out the idea of
No, that's not a bad one. Not a bad one.
If we could somehow organize just a little bit, I think we could all benefit by organizing so that even if we don't collide with another, even if you do collide with another stream, fine. But at least we know that certain streams, not just yours, but others, are out there. Oh, I didn't know that guy had a stream at 10:30 at night on that guy's stream. We all benefit if we can try. I think if we can just try to organize it. And one of the availabilities, I think, is this Discord concept. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm a nobody. You know a lot more people than I do. I'm just trying to try to propagate the concept of if we can organize a bit, we can all benefit. Anyway, go ahead. Enjoy your night. Enjoy your wife. Thank you so much. Enjoy you, Ernest.
I just wanted to say there very quick.
Points, dude. A lot of things that made me realize, yeah, I think it's not even that we think the same way. I just think that there's facts, there's objective truths that there's just no getting around. And when people think hard enough, you stumble into the same thing.
Yeah, definitely. I just want to say right quick there before I close up too. Steve, like I said, shoot me a shout on Twitter.
Yep.
I definitely like to have a chat with you sometime, either offline or online, whatever you want to do. I love it because I always love to expand my knowledge because I'm 27 years old. I'm still learning. And
Ernest underscore Snorks.
No,
Snooks.
SNOOKS.
Okay, thank you. So, all right, let's get off for the sake of Nachi here. He's been trying to edge out, and you and I are both probably end up inevitably slowing him down. So, thank you so much. Let's go. Great to have you both. Thank you so much, and have a good night.
No, thanks, man. You too, Stephen. Nice meeting you, bro.
You too.
Well, Ernest, man, thanks so much for hanging in there the whole time, man. I was not expecting it to be this long, but it was cool. Hold on, let me see if I can still keep you on for a second. Let me see. I stopped the broadcast.